Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a Wednesday live stream. This is sort of an impromptu situation here. We're reading through the chat over the weekend and noticed that several of you were having some issues with the most recent granny square in our Granny's Magical Cupboard calendar blanket. So we thought we would do a special live stream, a live Q&A. We are going to try and address every single little question mark that's hanging over your head. I've got some additional teaching aids here with me today. We're going to do one in real time and hopefully we'll clear up any possible questions you might have. So as we go along, feel free to ask questions in the chat. And if we, as we progress, if you see somebody asking a question that's already been answered, just let them know that the question has been answered. And they can always pop back and see this again later in its entirety. So this video or live stream, I guess, is going to operate as kind of an addendum to our original granny square tutorial for the Jacob's ladder stitch. We've linked that original tutorial below, so you've got them kind of paired up. And we've also linked the solid double crochet granny square tutorial because that is essentially what this square is, with loops braided over top of it, and I will get into that as we get going. I've even got some additional visuals here. I'm hoping I can make this sort of, I want to try and explain this in like 3 or 4 different ways, just to, so hopefully I catch everybody's learning curve. But we will take it easy and go through it together. That is the whole point. We don't want to leave any stitchers behind. So welcome, happy Wednesday. Thank you all so much for joining us. Mr. and Stitches is here, pressing buttons and stuff.
Hello, everybody.
We've both just poured ourselves a fresh cup of coffee, so we are ready to go. Okay, so where to start? The granny square, the Jacob's ladder granny square, is basically a solid double crochet granny square, so just double crochets with a braided loop effect running from its center out. So to demonstrate, you sort of seen this one now. It's kind of based, the first row is very much familiar. It should be very familiar to anybody who's ever made a granny square. It should look to you like 3 shells, or I should say 4 shells, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. That's what it looks like. This is what the first row looks like. And the only difference is that we are adding in loops, chain 10 loops. So we add in a chain 10 loop in the middle of each of those 4 corners, and we add in a chain 10 loop on top of the middle stitch of each side in every row. So I have a quick visual here. This little purple square in the middle is the chain 5 ring. So this little square is a chain 5 ring. Each of these purple rectangles is a double crochet along the side. The green rectangle is the middle double crochet. So you've got double crochet, double crochet, double crochet. Chain 1, double crochet, double crochet, double crochet. The green also indicates where we are putting a loop. So that middle stitch on each side is where the loop is built. And the little green circle in the corners, so these purple little dashes represent the chain 1s that create the chain 2 corner space. And the green indicates that we've got to put a chain 10 loop in there. So I'm going to just sort of refer back to this little drawing every so often, because I want to sort of, I guess, hammer in the idea that we're just building a regular granny square, a regular double crochet granny square, solid double crochet granny square. It's just that we are adding in little loops as we go. So we're sort of putting a chain 10 loop in each corner, and that is always the same. And we're putting a chain 10 loop on top of the very middle stitch of each side as we go, and that is always the same. So the green is where we put the loops. The purple is just sort of the regular stitches. Stitch count, I'm going to mention again as we go. So at the every side in row 1 has 3 double crochet stitches. You always have 4 chain 2 corners. Obviously, a square always has 4 corners, and each of those corners always has a chain 2 or chain 10 loop in it. So that's easy enough to remember. It's just the side stitch count that I think might be giving some of you a bit of a hang up. So in row 1, it's 3 per side, 12 double crochet for the entire row. So 4 sides, 3 stitches per side, and there's a chain 10 loop in the middle, top of the middle stitch on each side. So that's row 1. This pattern does size up kind of a little bit bigger. I have to say, my finished ladder, Jacob's ladder granny square, is the same size as my January square. Some people talk about a bit of rippling or waving, and you can see that mine wants to do that. And I kind of mentioned, I think I may have mentioned it on the Monday live stream, that the braided loops operate like spines. So these create 8 spines on our square, and that means that the double crochet fabric in between the spines might want to, it's not going to be as strong as sort of the spine part of the square. So that's going to add a little bit of a rippling effect, but don't worry about that, because that will smooth itself out if you block it. It'll also smooth itself out when you attach them to the other squares. At the end of the Jacob's Ladder tutorial, I was talking a little bit about joining and just sort of reiterated that all stitch patterns are a little bit different, and so they may operate a little bit differently. They may affect your tension a little bit differently. So some squares might be a little bigger, a little smaller, like a little looser, a little tighter. Some of them might be a little skinny, some of them might be a little wide. It's okay, because they will all end up fitting in with each other just fine, so long as your stitch count and your row count is always the same. So it's the stitch count and the row count that's very important for the squares this year. And it doesn't matter if some of them are kind of wide or skinny or a little looser or a little tighter. You can always block your squares before you join them if you want to. I know a lot of you are doing that. I keep seeing beautiful photographs of these squares stretched out on the blocking boards, which just looks so nice. And then of course that way you can sort of get them all to size roughly the same. But you don't have to. I'm not blocking mine. I like to join mine at the end and then block the whole project after I'm done. But you can block as you go. You can block afterwards. It's entirely up to you. But if looking at a wiggly pattern gives you a hard time, then feel free to sort of block them in place. That's perfectly fine too. I'm so glad I'm seeing the chat here. Some of you had no problems. A lot of you liked the way they came out. That's great. I'm really happy to hear that. Yes, Dawn, you could absolutely do this in a variegated or a self-striping yarn. Some of you have been posting some photographs. Some of you have done them solid, so you just sort of see the braided the braided loops, which is really cool. I've done stripes. Some of you have kind of really done sort of color blocks. Thank you, Kimberly. Kimberly's just popped in with a super sticker. She's handing me a cup of coffee. Thank you so much. Cheers, Kimberly. Appreciate it. Glad you guys could be here. All right. Yes. So we're going to talk, as we go through it, I'm going to try and reiterate all the things that I've been looking at everybody's sort of, if you've given me a sort of a specific issue, or you've mentioned a specific thing that that kind of hung you up, I'm going to try and address it as we go. So I'm going to keep one square on the board. I'm going to use a skinnier yarn than I have been thus far, because I think it will help me to show you the shape of the stitch a little bit better as we go. So these are my squares. This is a size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn. That's what I'm using for the blanket, but I'm going to demonstrate using my usual hook, but with a slightly skinnier yarn. I think that might help for visuals. I'll do a couple rows in the same color without changing colors, because no one's really said that the changing of the color has given them a trouble. It's just more the stitch count, how many, like where the loop goes in. I think that's kind of more what seems to be the general issue. Oh, and also like the loops getting in the way. So we're going to talk about that and how to kind of rein them in a little bit better. We're going to find a way that works best for you, because this is such a pretty square and it is just such a satisfying square once it's finished. So I want everybody to feel like they've achieved something. Plus, if ever you run into a bit of a challenge in anything, crochet, driving, I don't care what it is, if you find a bit of a challenge, I know the older we get, the more we tend to shy away from challenges. I think that's probably because we just reach a point in our life where we have challenge fatigue, and it's like, you know what, I'm done. I am done trying to climb this mountain. I don't want to climb this mountain anymore. Please don't make me climb a mountain. Totally get it. But I also think that because there's a great balance in the universe, that when you do address the challenge and you do ultimately overcome it, the feeling of satisfaction is even bigger. And I think that's because the more we're annoyed by a challenge, the more satisfied we feel when we finally ace it. So I want everybody to feel that wonderful feeling of acing a challenge. So that's what we're going to do here. We are going to ace this square together. So here we go. Sip of coffee. Naomi's having absolutely no trouble, so I'm glad to hear that. It's just sometimes I think some patterns kind of make our brains twist. I think it's the same reason some people kind of get a bit confused with the corner to corner. It's because your brain is set up to kind of go back and forth like a typewriter, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, let's go on an angle, and that just throws some people for a loop. So speaking of loops, let's get into this. I'm going to leave this square here. This one's going to the side, my 3 colors, and I'm going to put my stitch markers to the side. I have an extra set of stitch markers today because I'm going to use them to identify the middle stitch of each side. So row 1's going to look a little clumsy, but I'm going to work as flat as I can on the table so that there isn't as much flopping around. I also have a small sample size here. This is 3 rows. This is a 3-row version of the Jacob's Ladder Granny Square, which I'm also going to kind of just refer to every once in a while because I think, you know, it's kind of easy to see bits and pieces of it. And I have another teaching aid. This is the solid double crochet square. We have a tutorial for this linked below. This is an original, we have an existing tutorial for this. This square will also work with this year's calendar blanket. So if you want to stick in some solid double crochet granny squares, we have a tutorial for that. Just remember, if you're making all of your squares 6 rows, you got to make this one 6 rows too. But this is basically the canvas for our Jacob's Ladder Granny Square. So if you can do a solid double crochet granny square, you can absolutely do this one. It's just remembering where to put the loops. And I feel like this might help kind of get our brains all in the right place. So I'm going to have this hanging out here as well.
We have a question from Doug's wife, Sandy. Can
Sure.
you see the question there?
Doug's wife, Sandy.
So Doug Johnson.
Do I see it? Oh, there we go. Hi, I'm Doug's wife, Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Can the blocks be made by omitting the side chains and only the corners? Thank you, Katina. Thank you for picking up a pattern. You need the side chains, omitting the side chains, and only. Oh! You mean skipping the braided ladder in the sides and only doing the ones in the corners, Sandy? If that's what you mean, yes. You can just do the loops in the corners if you don't want to bother with the loops in the side. In which case you would just your corners would be chain 11, slip stitch into the 10th chain, chain 1. And of course you're still putting 2 double crochet on either side of that in each successive row. But yes, and then it's just solid double crochet across each side. If you wanted to exclude the side braided ladders, yes, you could do that. Alternatively, you could also exclude the braided ladders in the corners and only have the 4 going out each side. So that's 3 different versions of that square. Chains in the side and the corners, only chains in the corners, or only chains along the sides. If I have enough time, I will even show you how to do those too. And those are 2 really awesome like variations on this pattern that you could add into your blanket this year as well if you wanted to.
There's a
great question, Sandy.
Question from Melissa just below Sandy's question.
Melissa, all right, I'm looking for Melissa. Mister, can you ask about carrying the yarn instead of cutting the yarn? Yes, Melissa, if you are going to alternate between 2 colors, you are always going to be chaining up on top of the chained 3 that began the previous row. So see if I can find my beginning here. That's not it. That's not it. Where's my chain 3? Isn't that funny? I think is this it? Nope. There, this is it. So the chain 3 always sits right on top of the chain 3 from the previous row. So if you're only alternating between 2 colors, you can absolutely carry colors. You just want to make sure that you are dropping the color you don't need for the row at the back. And before you join the row, pick up that dropped color and just catch it in the closure of that row. So when you slip stitch to join, make sure that you slip stitch to join over top of that dropped color. So pick up the dropped color and then slip stitch to join the row so that you've brought the color kind of like up, so it's not kind of crossing up. You kind of bring it up, and then you can start right from where you need to, because there's no you don't have to slip stitch into a corner with this pattern. So yes, if you're only using 2 colors, then you can definitely carry colors by switching back and forth. It will leave a little bit of a line. Let me grab my other square where I did carry colors. Hang on, everybody. Okay, so it's not this one, it's not this one, it's not this one, it's this one. I carried colors in this square. So this is a stacked granny square, and I alternated between just my deeper blue and my gold color. And on the back, you can see at where I am carrying the color up. So if you don't mind a little bit of a carrying showing, that's what it looks like on the back. So you can see that I used yellow to start, or the gold to start, and I carried the gold up when I joined blue. So the gold covers the back of a stitch on the blue, but then I caught it with the blue and then dropped it, did the row of blue, and as I closed the blue, I picked up the gold. So that's why you see that carry there. Then I did a row of gold, like while dropping the blue. Before I closed the row of gold, I picked up the blue, caught it, so that it would be available for me to do the row of blue, and so on. So there's a little bit of a carry that runs up the back of the granny square if you're going to carry color. Now, this doesn't bother me, mainly because you have to really be looking to see it. But this is also the back of the square, so I don't really care. But if this drives you crazy, then you want to do what I do and just cut the yarn and join a new ball, or join the new color in every row, and that way you don't get that color carry. But if this doesn't bother you, it's faster than cutting. You have fewer ends to weave in, so that's a nice option for that. I hope that answers that little question. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, Diane. Diane has rejoined Alpaca. Thank you so much, Diane.
We have a request from Maria just below Diane's membership.
Maria, would it be possible for you to let us know how many stitches per side as you go? Absolutely. I am definitely going to do that. At the end of the Jacob's Ladder video, I did indicate how many stitches per side you should have. And I don't think I was clear enough as we went in the video. So we will talk about that as we go. So here we go. I'm going to get started. I'm going to leave this here. I'm just going to start with, this is a pretty easy color to see. So let's start with this.
Don't forget, we have our little sneaky sale today.
Yes.
Before we get started,
Mr. Stitches is right. We have a sneaky sale today, even though this is an unscheduled crochet long. All 3 of our squares so far this year, the granny squares from the cupboard, are on 10% off today. And the solid double crochet granny square, which this Jacob's Ladder is built upon, which you can also use in this year's blanket. That pattern is also 10% off in the shop today. So if you wanted to pop in, please feel free to. And they should all be sitting up top. I think I have them set to look like that. Quick sip of my coffee here. All right, my darlings. Oh, Robin, thank you. Yes, or Rob, I should say. Rob popped in. Rob is correct. Please look at his line here in the comment section. This is per side per row. Row 1, 3 double crochet. Row 2, 7. Row 3, 11. Row 4, 15. Row 5, 19. Row 6, 23. That is stitches per side. He is absolutely correct. Thank you, Rob. Those are the numbers, and that's per side. So multiply each of those numbers by 4, and that's the entire stitch count for a whole row. So for example, here you can see, I'm going to use my needle, there's 3 stitches per side. So like 1, and then number 2, and then number 3. So there's 3 stitches per side, but altogether there's 12 in that row. And every side for each row increases by 4 because you're always putting 2 double crochet in the corner. You're double crocheting in the top of the previous row's stitches and then another 2 double crochet in the corner. So it's 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 4 is 11. 11 plus 4 is 15. 15 plus 4 is 19. 19 plus 4 is 23, and so on. So if you were going to make these bigger, then that's the number or the stitch count. That's how you know how many stitches per side you should have. So thank you, Rob. Yep, that's a quick one. Here we go, here we go, here we go. And then let's start. So we are going to make a slip knot, chain 5, and join to make a ring. So that's that little ring that we start with. Some people have asked if they could use the cinch circle. I recommend against cinch circles in this particular project because the little extra bit of room that you get from that circle gives your stitches a little more space to breathe. And that's just because these patterns are all a little bit different. You want just a little bit more space for all those stitches. You don't want them squished together at their feet. So you want to give their feet a little bit of room to breathe in row 1. So we're using a chain 5 ring. Chain 3 to begin. That's your double crochet. If you want to use a standing double crochet, you're more than welcome to. I don't like the standing double crochet because I feel that it's kind of complicated for me to do with my little hands, but I also feel that it's kind of on the thick side, so I feel like it stands out a lot more than just a regular chain 3, but that could just be me. So if you want to use the standing double crochet, you are welcome to, but I use a chain 3. We double crochet into the circle. I'm going to bring my little visual back in here. So where's my thing? Let's say this is side 1. This little purple rectangle represents my chain 3. This little green rectangle represents the next double crochet that I've just done, and because it's green, that indicates that I've got to do the chain 10 on top of it. So the middle stitch, number 2 of 3, the middle stitch gets the chained loop. So we chain 10. And then we slip stitch back into the top of that double crochet. So if you're looking at the top of the double crochet, just ignore your chain 10. Look at your double crochet as normal. There's the top of it. You're going to stick your hook right through the top of it. There we go. That's your chain 10. It's sitting on top of the middle double crochet. And then you want to finish the side with a double crochet. So there's 3 double crochet in that side. 1 double crochet on either side of the middle stitch, and the middle stitch gets the loop. I'm going to mark the middle stitch with a stitch marker. And if I pull it apart, you see there's a stitch on either side of it. So you need to think of like that middle stitch as being its own thing. Just because we have to make the double crochet before we make the chain 10 that sits on top of it, but that middle stitch never moves. It is always the middle stitch of the side. And then there will be 2 additional stitches on this side and 2 additional stitches on this side for row 2. By row 3, there'll be 4 additional stitches on either side. By row 4, there'll be 6 additional stitches on either side because it grows by 4 stitches every time. But that middle stitch never moves. It's always the same. So you're always building the chain 10 loop into the top of the middle stitch. So if you want to think of it like that, like a picot stitch, says Kibby, yes, it's a chain 10 as opposed to like a little picot, which is a chain 3. Okay, we move into a corner. Let's look at our original solid double crochet granny square. So this is the middle stitch of row 1. We've just done that, but we've added a chain 10 loop to the top of it. Okay, so far so good. Then we come to the corner. Every single corner is created by a chain 2. So double crochet or 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet is the typical corner, but we're on row 1. So we're just getting things started. A typical corner on row 1 of the granny square will be chain 2. So just think of the space as being created by 2 chains. Well, here's our little visual. Here's our little 2 chains. So those little purple dashes are the 2 chains we want to make the corner. but in the middle of the corner, we want to add a chain 10 loop. So you can think of it, oh my goodness, Judith, thank you. Thank you for picking up a pattern. You can think of it like chain 1, make a chain 10 loop, chain 1, or chain 11, slip stitch into the 10th chain from the hook. You can think of it that way, chain 1. Any way you look at it, you are putting a chain 10 loop into the middle of a 2 chain corner space. So it's just chain for the corner space, but in the middle you're building a chain 10 loop. So here we go. I chain 1 for the first half of that corner space, and then I need to add a chain 10 loop. So I'm going to chain 10 more. So I've made sure that nothing's spinning on me. It's a complete weird looking kind of chaos right now, but that's okay. I've got 11 chains off my hook. I'm just looking for number 10, which is the second chain I made. I'm going to slip stitch into it. And there's my chain 10 loop. Okay, so I've done the chain 1. I've added the loop. You know what? It's probably better with the visual here. I've done this chain. I've made the chain 10 loop. And now I need to make the second chain to finish the corner space. So there's my second chain to finish the corner space. Okay, so now I turn my attention back to that original little circle or ring. And now I want to start another side. So double crochet. Remember, we're only on row 1 here. That chain 10 loop, I'm going to add a stitch marker to. I'm using blue and yellow stitch markers for my corners, and I'm marking the middle stitch of my row with a red stitch marker. It will be a lot easier to see once we get a few more rows out. So that's the first double crochet of side number 2. I need to make the middle double crochet of the side. So I have to establish that second double crochet or the middle stitch of the side before I build the chain 10 loop. So now I build the chain 10 loop. I chain 10. I come back to the double crochets. So I got to find them. Everything's spinning around on me here. All right, there I go. Got my bearings. Here's my center. I put it on my finger. There's the 2 double crochets I just made right there. I'm looking for the top of the second one. It's the middle double crochet of the side. And I just slip stitch to join. I still have my finger in that middle circle. I'm going to work 1 more double crochet into that ring, and that's the side. There's 3 double crochet on the side, and the middle stitch gets the chain 10 loop. So if I hold it like that, you can sort of see this is the chain ring. This is the corner we just made. I'm just going to kind of hide everything under my hand. Double crochet, chain 10 loop, double crochet. There's a double crochet on either side of that middle stitch. It's the middle stitch that gets the chain 10 loop. It's always the middle stitch that gets the chain 10 loop. I'm going to stick a stitch marker on that middle stitch. It's going to look like a little bit of a Frankenstein here at the end of row 1, but that's okay. So there's my chain 10 loops that are on either side. There's the corner chain 10 loop. I've got a special stitch marker on that one. That indicates that it's a corner to me. Hey Karen, thank you so much for picking up a pattern. I'm going to take a sip of coffee on that note. Hello everybody. Welcome if you're just dropping by. We are doing a deep dive on the Jacob's Ladder Granny Square Q&A session. We are going to make sure that nobody gets confused or left behind on this week's previous tutorial because I love this square and I want you to be able to feel like you've mastered it. So that's what we're doing today. Please feel free to ask questions about the square as we go, and we will do our best to answer them. Crocus is wondering about the I can't order on Amazon. Where else can I get these? Are we talking about this?
I linked the stitch
markers?
Link to the stitch markers for Amazon.
If you can't order on Amazon,
so maybe I honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe a local sewing shop or
Yeah. My mother-in-law, my amazing mother-in-law, who finds all these cool things for me, she bought these for me. I'm pretty sure she probably found them at Fabricland, which is the only fabric chain store I know of in Canada. But of course, you know, my understanding of chain stores is rather limited to Ontario and points east. So I'm pretty sure she found them at a Fabricland, because they're sewing clips and they're really handy. So I'm guessing you would have luck finding them at a quilting store, a fabric store, any store that sells sewing notions. But we eventually found them on Amazon because so many people were asking us about them. So we did find them on Amazon. But my mother-in-law found them in a sewing store. So that's probably where you're going to have the best luck. Joanne says yes at Fabricland. So there you go. Joanna, also a fellow Ontarian. Jessica Rabbit, great idea. Just Google sewing clips and you'll see where you can find them. That's probably a good idea too. Oh, Walmart sells them, says Myra. See, just check the chat. The chat's amazing. Everybody knows where to find stuff.
Lots of info in the chat.
Super duper.
We got a gifted membership from Melissa.
Oh my gosh, Melissa, thank you. Thank you so much.
And the winner is Melissa.
And Melissa. Well, that's cool.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. Congratulations, Melissa. All right. Let's get back to our little square. So we've just finished side 2. I've marked the middle stitch just so it's, you know, we remember that the middle stitch is the stitch that gets the chain 10 loop on it. And we're about to do another corner. So once again, on row 1, the corner is chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Or chain 11, slip stitch into the 10th chain, chain 1. So I'm going to chain, there's my chain 1 that starts the corner. Now I'm going to chain 10. I'm going to come all the way back down, find the 10th chain and slip stitch into it. So there's my loop made. And now I just need to finish the corner by chaining 1. So chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Corner made. And I will stick a stitch marker on that. That is a corner loop, so I have marked it separately than the side loops. Don't worry, this will make a lot more sense when I'm finished. I'll lay it down flat and we'll dissect it. We are now making side number 3. Side number 3 is 3 double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, double crochet. In the middle, in the top of the middle stitch, we need to add a chain 10 loop. So it looks like this. Double crochet, all worked into that chain ring. That's double crochet. Double crochet. Oh, this is the middle stitch. So we're going to chain 10. When you chain 10 for the side loops, you want to slip stitch into the top of the double crochet you came out of. So you find the top of that double crochet, slip your hook right through the top of it, and slip stitch. Then forget like you even made it, just sort of pull it out of the way and finish the side with another double crochet. So you have 3 double crochets on that side and there's a chain 10 loop in the middle of the middle stitch, in the top of that middle stitch. And you can see it. I've got it pulled apart here. There's 3 double crochets, all very clearly to see, and then right in the middle stitch there's a chain 10 loop. So that is side number 3. I'm going to add a stitch marker. I'm going to clip that middle stitch. We are making another corner now. A corner is chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, chain 1, chain 10, come on back down to the 10th chain, create the loop. So you've got chain 1, you've got a chain 10 loop, chain 1. That's the corner made. I'm going to put a stitch marker on that corner loop so I know it's a corner loop. And we've got one more side to make. Here's my middle ring. I got my finger in it. A side is 3 double crochet, and the middle stitch gets the chain 10 loop. So here we go. Double crochet, double crochet. Oh, that's the middle stitch. So I've got to make my chain 10 loop now. Chain 10. And slip stitch into the top of the double crochet that you just came out of. And 1 more double crochet to complete the side. So you have 3 double crochet and there's a chain 10 loop in the middle of it. And I see a question here. Barbara says, my chain loops came out overly large. How can I control the size of the chains? Okay. Larger loops are okay. It's not a big deal. If you feel though that like when you're chaining, you're having trouble maintaining tension on the chains and they're too large, if you want to take your time, you can switch to a smaller hook to make the chain 10 loops, 1. You can chain 10 a little more tightly, 2. Or when you make your square and you're sort of braiding all your loops together, just go back through it and sort of tug on your loops to make sure that they evenly sit on either side like a daisy chain. You know, when you're making a big, this is basically like chaining, right? You just want to kind of stretch out your little loops to make sure that they sit evenly on either side of the middle of the loop above it. So you can do that too. So you can switch to a smaller hook just for the chain loops. You can remember to chain tighter, or just take a little extra time when you've finished braiding to make sure all your loops are kind of evenly situated on top of your square. Those are 3 suggestions. Hi, Ruth. Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Everybody's just chiming in with where they're from. This is great. Global community. Okay, I'm just going to lay this down for a second. I'm going to put my stitch marker in the middle stitch of number 4. So I've got a stitch marker sitting on the middle stitch of each of those sides. I've got my corner loops marked and I'm missing 1, so therefore I still have to make my last corner, but I have all 4 of my side loops made. Row 1 is probably the trickiest to see. If we look again at our plain solid double crochet granny square, it's just 4 sides, each with 3 double crochet and 4 chain 2 corners. That's essentially all we're doing. It's just that we are adding a chain 10 loop in the middle of each side and a chain 10 loop in each corner. And it's a little difficult to see on the first row just because there's a lot going on. Just trust yourself though. All right, we need to make 1 more corner. A corner is chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. So here we go. Chain 1, chain 10, we want to complete the loop by slip stitching into the 10th chain from the hook. So there's the chain 10 loop made, and then chain 1, and that is the corner. Hello, Bethany. Bethany has been a member for 60 months. Thank you, Bethany. Bethany's got a membership milestone here. She says, good morning, everyone. About to have breakfast while watching. Oh, how very nice. This square is so pretty. I can't wait to try it. Thank you, Jada, for making patterns easy to follow and your willingness to help us. Well, you are so welcome, Bethany. I literally love you guys. And I love crochet, so if I mix these 2 things together, I don't want anybody to feel left behind. And I know how frustrating it feels when you think, you know, there's nothing wrong with you. If you have a problem with a pattern and, you know, you willingly reach out, I'm going to do my best to help you with anything that we've done here. If we make a tutorial and you have a question, please ask. If we make a pattern and you buy it and you have a question, please ask. We are here to help. I want everybody to enjoy these projects as much as I do. Okay, that was our last corner. I'm going to put my stitch marker on that last loop because that's a corner loop. And that brings us back to the beginning. So we're at the end of row 1. We're looking for the chain 3 that began the row, or if you used a standing double crochet, that's fine too. You're going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 or the standing double crochet, whichever you used, and that's it. Slip stitch to join. So this looks like a mess, right? No problem. We're going to be nice and calm. We're going to pull everything out. So I know that my yellow and blue stitch markers are my corner loops, so I'm just going to pull them out of the way. I'll just pull up on my loop, my hook here. And I marked the middle stitch of each of my sides with a stitch marker just to remind myself that the middle stitch of the side gets the loop. So quick count, I have 8 chain 10 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. I have 4 sides. Each side has a chain 10 loop in the middle, and each of my 4 corners has a chain 10 loop in the corner. So far, so great. Hey, Katie! Katie's been a member for 41 months. Thank you, Katie. With a membership milestone, she says, hi, I'm making your chevron blanket. Thanks, Ms. J. Love that. Love that pattern. It is so pretty, so eye-catching. Welcome, welcome, everybody. All right. Everybody. So Joanna's finding the first row is nice and easy with no markers. That's great. Yep, it looks like a mess, Joanne. It absolutely does. Probably now if I take out all my stitch markers, which I will do, it will look less clumsy and less messy. But I want to use the stitch markers for anybody who's having trouble kind of... I guess what I want is for you to be able to think about it differently in your head. So if I just pull up on my working loop to get it out of the way. If I pull on those 4 corner loops, you can see the square. So if I tighten up on that loop, that'll make it look a little less crazy. But if I pull out on those 4 loops in the corners, you can see the square, right? There's 3 double crochet on each side. There's a chain 10 loop in the center stitch of each of those sides, and there's a chain 10 loop in each corner. The corners are always chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. And it's just in the next few rows that we just start adding extra double crochets, but even that is a routine pattern. Nothing changes after really row 2. So here we go. I will not change colors yet, unless you guys think it would help. Do you want me to change colors? Like, do you find this is easier to see? Like, you've got your row 1, like your row 1, your row 2 in white, your row 3 in yellow. Do you want me to change colors, or do you want me to just stick with the same color? I'll take a sip of coffee while you all chime in the chat and let me know. Oh, I agree, guys. Row 1 looks crazy, but that's because the loops aren't hooked up to anything. The square isn't super easy to see unless you really pull it apart, so you see those 3 or those 4 shells kind of all staring at you. It looks a little bit like a flower. Like, I don't know, I kind of like the first row. Hey, Michelle. Michelle's been a member for 49 months. Michelle says, good morning. I've rewound the video because I was late. I am determined to master this. You will get it. I promise. Nobody gets left behind here. Same color. Change colors.
I'd also like to mention, everyone, that you can slow down or speed up videos. There's a setting. You probably don't want to do it now because we're live, but when you're watching a pre-made video tutorial, if you go into the little settings button, you can slow videos down by 1 times, 1.5, 2 times, and that might help you when you're watching a tutorial. Jada will sound like a baritone.
I will sound like
a bassist,
this.
But it might help.
Yes. And remember, too, to pause. And also, I don't know if you guys know how to turn on closed captioning. Couple of awesome points about closed captioning. They have gotten much better with real-time closed captioning on videos in the last few years. So if you turn on CC, closed captions, you can see the words that I'm saying written out at the bottom of your screen. And if you pause the video, that bit of text will stay there. So if you're sort of trying to catch up and you pause the video, the last couple sentences I've said will be showing. And if English isn't your first language, you can translate the closed captions now. You click on settings on the video player, you go into closed captions. I think there's something that says language options. You click on that and pretty much every language on the planet is now available, and it'll automatically translate those closed captions. Now, I don't speak another language fluently enough to know how well crochet terminology translates in another language, but I would hope that if you understand English well enough to know kind of what I'm doing most of the time, seeing it in your own language would be enough of an indicator that you kind of know what I'm doing. But that's there too. So if you need to pause, turn on the closed captions because you want to see the words in addition to what I'm doing. They just keep making this video stuff better and better, but they're not good about telling everybody how to use it. So we will do our best. Okay, I've just put my stitch markers back in on my corner loops. It looks like everybody was kind of, I felt like it was sort of half and half. Change colors, change colors, change colors.
I guess I could do a poll if you like.
Change colors. Nah, I see mostly change colors. Okay, so I'm going to change colors. I do feel that it makes it easier to see. So this is my little working loop. I will change colors. So I'll just fasten off. All right, I'm going to ignore my little tails though, not worried about them. So here I go, just so we're all still on the same page. I've put clips back on my corner loops. They are different from the loops on the sides. If I pull out on the corner, so I ignore the loops, you can see the regular square there. That's that square. There's 3 double crochet per side. It looks like a shell, 3 double crochets, 1 shell, so it's that plain first row of a solid double crochet granny square. So you need to be able to see that. You've just got chain 10 loops on top of it. So as long as we can all see this, we will move forward. Hello, Danielle. Danielle has been a member for 27 months. I love your Care Bear avatar. I love the Care Bears. Danielle says, hi, I'm enjoying the granny square so far. Great. I'm so happy to know that. I do love these. All right. Jane, is it better to cut and change or can you carry the yarns up? Bethany, we just quickly discussed that. If you're alternating between 2 colors, you're going to get something that looks like this up the back. If that doesn't bother you, carry the colors. It's really easy. You just drop the one you're not using while you're not using it, but make sure you pick it up and catch it when you close the row so that it's brought up so that you can use it. Otherwise, if you want things to look a little neater, like this one, this is the back of my stacked shells. I changed colors by snipping my yarn, fastening off, and then rejoining my new yarn, and I feel that looks neater, but it is entirely up to you. Yes, you can change colors, and yes, you can carry them or just cut them. And Lisa! Hey Lisa, welcome to Alpaca. Thanks for joining the family. Okay, I'm going to switch to a lighter color. I'm still using the slightly skinnier yarn so that I can really pull my stitches apart and you can see them. I'm going to join with a slip stitch. It's okay, Bethany, I don't mind repeating the odd little thing. All right, picking up my square. Here we go. Here's my corners. Here are my sides. If you're not changing color, you just join with a slip stitch at the top of the chain 3. We all start in the same place. So whether you're changing colors or not, you're always going to start in the top of the chain 3. It's the same for every single row. So if you're not changing colors, you're right there. If you are changing colors, you're going to stick your hook in at the top of that chain 3 where you just fastened off and join your new yarn. So you're always starting in the same place. So just slip stitch to join. Okay. So I'm looking at the 3 double crochet from the previous row with the chained loop. Just to reiterate, there's 3 double crochets in the previous row's side. The middle stitch is what gets the chained 10 loop. I am starting in the top of the chain 3. Every row begins in the top of the chain 3, and that is always the stitch just before the middle stitch. So the chain 3 is always just before the middle stitch. You have to chain 3 to start the row, and you have to make the middle stitch before you can put a chain 10 loop in it. So here we go. 3 chains, that starts the row, and now we want to make the middle stitch. Okay, where is the middle stitch? Hard to see, right? Well, there's our loop. Here's the double crochet, and there's the space right there. That's where we're putting our stitch. double crochet right into the top of that stitch. So that stitch, now if you ignore the fact that there's a chain 10 loop there, and you see the chain 3, the next double crochet, the next double crochet, right? There just happens to be a chain 10 loop in it. No biggie, just ignore it for now. We know that's the middle stitch, so we need to put a chain 10 loop in the top of it. So we're going to chain 10. Slip stitch back into the top of the double crochet. So there's the middle double crochet made with the chain 10 loop. Okay. Well, what do you do with the chain 10 loop from the previous row? Well, you want to pull it to the front and just pull it out of the way, because all of your loops need to stay on the front of your work. So you pull the loop to the front. All right. Where's my next stitch? Well, here it is here. I've pulled the loop out of the way. If I pull on the rest of my work, so I'm pulling the loop out of the way, I'm pulling the work out of the way on the other side, very clearly the next place I need to put my hook shows up. So there's the middle stitch, and there's the stitch right next to it. So I need to put a double crochet in the stitch right next to it. So there's the loop from the previous row, and now I've made the chain 3, the double crochet, the chain 10 loop on top of it, and the double crochet right next to it. So far I'm stitch for stitch from the row previous. But now I'm entering my first corner, and this is where some people start having trouble with the stitch counts. Remember, you are always adding 4 double crochet per side each row. Or you can think of it like every corner gets 4 double crochet. You're just also remembering to do the chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1 in between those 4 double crochet. So here we go. This is the corner space from the previous row. There's a chain 10 loop in it. Before I think about making my corner, I need to add 2 double crochet to the row. So into the corner space, I'm going to work 2 double crochet. Nice and plain, just like a standard solid double crochet granny square. So that was row 1. This is row 2 that we're on. There's the 3 double crochet that sit in the middle of row 2, right on top of the 3 double crochet from row 1. There's 2 over here, there's 2 over here. These double crochet are built into the corner space, right? 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. That's your standard corner in a solid double crochet granny square. Easy peasy. With this one, we're just adding a chain 10 loop into the middle of it. So there's my 2 double crochet worked into my chain 2 corner. I want to start the corner space for row 2, so I chain 1. Now I have to add my chain 10 loop. So I chain 10. Come back down, find the 10th chain, slip stitch into it to join. Now before I finish with the chain 1, 2 double crochet, I can chain 1 because really I'm still creating the corner. So chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Get the loop from the previous row out of the way, and I'm still looking at the corner. Now I want to add those 2 double crochets. So you can think of it like 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. That's a corner. 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. But every time you go 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet, in between the chain 2, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. So you're just inserting a chain 10 loop in between those 2 chains, right? Corner space is made by 2 chains. You're just sticking a chain 10 loop in the middle of it. So I've made my chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. I have to add my 2 double crochet to the corner because that starts the next side. There's 2 double crochet in the corner on one side. There's 2 double crochet in the corner on the other side. So you're working a double crochet for every single stitch of the row previous, plus 2 double crochet in the corner on one side and 2 double crochet in the corner on the other side. So I had mentioned in the tutorial that you might find it handy to clip your loops together. You might also find it handy to just start looping up your loops. If you find braiding as you go helps, feel free to do that. I didn't do it in the tutorial because I didn't want the loops to interfere with where you see your stitches, so I was leaving them apart. But if you find them kind of, it gets just sort of nutty, then you can either clip them all together or you can start looping them up together. It's entirely up to you, whatever's easiest, but I'm just going to clip my corner loops together for now. And I'm also going to clip together my middle loops, just so they're not all flip-flopping all over the place. All right, I'm looking at side 2. So side 2, there's 3 double crochet from the previous row. There's a chain 10 loop in the middle stitch. That chain 10 loop is on top of this middle stitch, which means I've got to go double crochet. That brings me to the middle stitch. I have to make the stitch before I add the chain 10 loop, so I double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, chain 10 loop, pull that out of the way, and you can see where the next stitch is going to be, right here. Okay, so let's do that. Pull back on any work you put in a corner so you can see the top of the next stitch, double crochet into it. That brings us up to the middle stitch. If you find it helpful to mark your middle stitches with a stitch marker, if you have slender stitch markers like the type that are actually made for clipping around stitches, just keep a stitch marker clipped on the middle stitch of the row from the row previous. That might make it easier to see. You know though that you have to make the middle stitch before you add the chain 10 loop. So here's where we put the double crochet right here. Now that I've made the middle stitch, I can add the chain 10 loop, so I chain 10. You want to complete the loop by slip stitching into the top of that middle double crochet. Now you pull that previous loop out of the way, just pull it out of the way, trap it under your thumb, and if you're confused, just tug. Pull the loop in one direction, so if you're right-handed, you're pulling it to the right. If you're left-handed and working left-handed, you would pull it to the left. Pull that loop out of the way, pull everything else out of the way, and that exposes the top of the next stitch. That's the stitch post, that's the top of it. So you pull the loop out of the way, double crochet into that next stitch. So now you've got loop on the middle stitch from the previous row, and you've built a loop onto the middle stitch of this row, but I haven't finished this row yet. I need to bumper it with 2 more double crochet in the next corner space. Let's just get those 2 double crochet into that corner space made so that we're looking at 7 double crochet. Oops. Okay. You've got 7 double crochet all the way across this row. I'm just going to try and make it look as neat as possible here. The stitch that the loop sits on is the middle stitch. There are 3 double crochet on either side of it. 3 double crochet, a double crochet middle stitch with the loop, and 3 double crochet. Because of the previous row's loops, they have to sit somewhere. So they're going to shove that middle stitch kind of to one side. This may also be one of the reasons that you get confused and you think, there's an extra stitch on this side of the loop and then there's one less stitch on the other side of the loop. Try not to think of it like that. Try to think of it like the middle stitch is always kind of, it's got to make room for the loop from the previous row. So it's always going to be sitting squished a little bit to the right. If you're working right-handed, it'll be sitting squished a little bit to the left if you're working left-handed. But it's the middle stitch, and the middle stitch has to have the loop on it. So if I pin these up and kind of clip them together, I've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the loop covers up the middle stitch. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's the middle stitch is back there. It's just covered by the loop. So you've got 7 double crochet across each side for row 2. All right, so I'm back into a corner. I've got 2 double crochet in that corner space. I want to start my corner, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. I'm going to do that. So 2 double crochet in the corner space, chain 1, chain 10 loop, there's the chain 10, I come back, find the 10th chain, slip stitch into it, and chain 1. So that's my corner made. Chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Well, I'm not done yet. I've got to put 2 more double crochet into the original corner from the previous row so I can start the next side, which means I've got to get that chain 10 loop out of the way. There's the rest of the corner, so I'm putting 2 double crochet on the other side of that corner loop. There we go. All right. I will clip these together. Keep them from banging around. There we go. Yeah, see, starting to make a little bit more sense. Looks a little more square. When you clip those loops together, you can kind of see it lying on top of the next row. All right, those 2 double crochet in the corner are the first 2 double crochet along our third side. Let's get this little tail out of the way. So there's the 3 double crochet from side 3 from the first row. I've already added my 2 double crochet into this corner. I have to add a double crochet for each of those 3 double crochets and then 2 double crochet into this corner. That gives me 7. 2, 3, 2. That's 7. So I'm going to double crochet into the next stitch. I'm going to double crochet into the next stitch, which is the middle stitch, add my chain 10 loop, pull this guy out of the way, double crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 double crochet into the corner. How are we doing so far? Is we lost anybody yet? Mister, I assume you're paying closer attention.
Is anyone's brain exploding out there? I hope not.
Everybody's...
I think you're helping a lot of people.
I sure hope so.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I've been seeing some light bulbs going on.
Great.
It really helps when you stretch it out because it shows the square.
Yes.
It shows where the square is in between all of the little loops.
Yeah, you almost want to ignore the loops. You're just looking for the square.
A little bit here. So if you can do that again.
So if you ignore the loops...
Yeah, you can see the little square, and then you can see the outer square.
And now you can see the outer square coming. So just ignore your loops, and you can see the corners coming, right? Because what you're doing is you're making this guy. You're just making the solid double crochet granny square. You're just remembering to add a chain 10 loop into the middle stitch of each side.
Oh, Maria's brain just exploded.
She get
We just had a brain explosion.
Awesome!
We must have had at least 3 or 4 so far.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you guys are finding this helpful. I am so happy to hear that. I am absolutely delighted. And my God.
Destiny says my light bulb is still flickering a little bit.
We're going to continue.
It's almost there. It's getting there.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
All right, let's finish row 2. So we worked 2 double crochet into the corner before we left because that starts the side. You've got 3 double crochet from the previous row. Double crochet, double crochet, double crochet. Well, that middle double crochet's got the chain 10 loop in the top of it. So before we get there, pull back on your corner work. That shows you where your 2 double crochet stitches are. There's one, there's one. So you're going to double crochet into each of those. Alrighty. Now, that will be the middle stitch because the middle stitch is always in the same place. The middle stitch is always going to be worked into the middle stitch of the previous row. So there's 3 double crochet, then the middle stitch, 3 double crochet. That's row 2. So we've done the middle stitch. Let's add our chain 10 loop. There's the top of the double crochet. You're going to slip stitch into it. That creates the chain 10 loop. And now I know after I've done the middle stitch, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, I have to put 3 more stitches in to complete the side. So pull this loop out of the way. Where do I put my other stitch? Oh my gosh. Well, if I pull that to the right and I pull this to the left, oh, there it is. There's where my hook has to go, right there. So double crochet into that stitch. That brings me to the corner. And I know I have to put 2 double crochet in the corner to complete the side. So I'll put 2 double crochet in the corner. And that is side 3 complete. So there's 7 double crochet there, 2 double crochet in the corner, a double crochet for each stitch from the previous row, and 2 double crochet in the corner. The middle stitch always gets the chain 10 loop. And I will clip these together. There we go. Let's just lay it down. You can see that square coming together, so ignore the loops. You can see the square. Look at that green. Ignore the loops. You can see the square happening underneath it. We are just building this guy. We're adding loops in. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 loops done. We've got 3 loops left to go. So here we go. We've started with 2 double crochet in the corner space. That completed side 3.
It's getting really bright in the chat with all these light bulbs going on. It's going to be blinding any minute now.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, the trick of ignoring, of course you're moving along, but the trick of ignoring the loops really helps.
Yeah, and Shay's also made a good point.
You don't ignore them.
Just try to see beyond them.
Try not to imagine them for a minute.
Yeah, Shay also makes a good point. If it helps you to think about it, there's 1 extra stitch on the right side of the loop than there is on the left side of the loop if you work right-handed. If you work left-handed, it would be 1 extra stitch on the left side. So for example, there's 4 stitches on this side of the loop, 3 on that side. In the next row, it'll be 6 stitches and then 5. And then it will be 8 stitches and then 7, and so on. It helps if it helps to think like that, like you have to count your stitches before you get to your loop. But it's if you consider the middle stitch of the row its own entity, there will be an equal number of stitches on either side of it. So in row 2, it's 3 double crochet, then the middle stitch with the loop, and then 3 double crochet. In the next row, it'll be 5 double crochet, and then the middle stitch with the loop, and then 5 double crochet. In the next row, it'll be 7 double crochet, and then the middle stitch with the loop, and then 7 double crochet. So if it helps to think like that, Ruth, thank you for picking up a couple of patterns. However you need to think about it. We're going to try and mention them all. So whichever way helps your brain, that's the one you go with. Okay, so we are into corner number 3. We've already worked 2 double crochet into the corner space, so now we need to make the corner. The corner is chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. So let's do that. Chain 1, chain 10 loop, slip stitch into the 10th chain. That's my chain 10 loop, and chain 1. Okay, let's get that previous loop from the corner out of the way. I still have the rest of that corner. I'm on the last side, so I need to put 2 double crochet into that corner space before I continue. So 2 double crochet into that corner. I'm going to pause. I'm going to clip those corner loops together. There we go. Gonna get that little short tail out of the way so it's not confusing. So here we go. We are working on side 4. You can see, look at the green. Look at the green yarn. The green yarn is showing you the square, right? So if you ignore the loops, look at that green outline. There's the square happening underneath the loops. We've got the first 2 double crochet of side 4 done. That means we need to put a double crochet in for each of those 3 stitches from the previous row, and 2 more double crochet into the other corner to make 7 stitches for the second row for the last side. And it's the middle stitch that has the loop on it. So we're leaving the corner, you pull back on your stitches. There's my next stitch. There's the stitch after that. Okay, that's the middle stitch. So the middle stitch needs the chain 10 loop. We'll work a chain 10 loop. come on back down to the top of that double crochet and slip stitch right into it. We got to get this guy out of the way. So, oh goodness gracious. Kim, thank you. Thank you for picking up some patterns. Pull that loop out of the way. So if you're right-handed, you're pulling the loop to the right. If you're working left-handed, you're pulling the loop to the left. Pull your other work in the other direction, and that immediately exposes exactly where you need to put your stitch, right there. Keep that loop out of the way and to the front. Always pull your loops to the front. Double crochet. There you go. And now I've got the chain 2 corner. I've got to work 2 double crochet into it before I finish my last corner. Let's get those 2 double crochet made. I'm going to pause. Have I got 7 stitches here? 1, 2, 3, middle stitch loop, 1, 2, 3. That's 7. Awesome. I will clip up these 2 loops together. First 2 rows are probably the trickiest. And we're almost done. All right, I'm in my last corner. I think I will pause at the end of this row and just weave in my short tails so they don't get confusing or look messy. I've worked the first 2 double crochet of the corner into it, so now I know I need to make my corner. Corner is chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, chain 1, chain 10 loop, come on back down, find the 10th chain and slip stitch into it. Chain 1, so there's the corner made. And now I get that loop out of the way, and I still have to add 2 more double crochet into that corner space to complete the first row, because we don't start the rows in a corner. We are starting the rows right where the chain 3 begins. So 2 double crochet to complete that corner space. And I'm going to pause. I'm going to clip my corner loops together. All right, I have little tails here. I'm going to get rid of them. So that's 2 double crochet in the corner. Let me just quickly count. I'm back to the side that I started on. There's 3 double crochet on that side. I've got my loops clipped up. There's the chain 3 that began, and there's the double crochet next to it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have all 7 stitches. Okay, I need to have 7 stitches in each side for row 2. Find the top of the chain 3 and join with a slip stitch. And there we go. I will fasten off and keep changing colors because I feel like it does sort of make it a little easier to see. But first I'm going to weave in my tails just to get them out of the way, and then we will pause and take a look at all those stitches. That's 1. So I'm just doing kind of a quick messy job of weaving in my tails here, guys, just so they're out of the way. All right. Yeah, that's more or less out of the way. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got here. I'm going to take my stitch markers out. All right. So the corners are yellow and blue. The sides are red. I will keep the stitch markers kind of at the points. Let's make sure that all of our loops are on the front of our square. So starting with row 1, yes, row 2 obviously because we just did it. Just look at the green and see the square. So see past the loops, just look at the green and see the square. So here we go. Every side should have 7 double crochet at the end of row 2. So if you peel back the loops from the first row, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the middle stitch, 5, 6, 7. All right. Let's turn and look at this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the middle stitch, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Let's look at this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the middle stitch, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And the last side. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the middle stitch, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 double crochet on each side of row 2. There are 8 loops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if I pull out on those corner loops and we see past the loops, I'm just going to kind of just straighten out those loops. You can see the square. Now, another thing you can do is if you're still kind of having trouble is you can just hook up your loops. You can hook them up and unhook them while you work if you find that helpful. So for example, if you go through, hook up your loops. I know I made one square where I looped as I went, and I made one square where I let all the loops kind of just hang when I was practicing this pattern. And honestly, I felt like just leaving them all unhooked before I finished the square was the easiest for me. But a couple of you tried doing this, like doing the braiding as you went, and you found it worked out a little bit better. So if you hook them up, this is what you're looking at.
Anna's hearing the Zelda music in her head when you find a treasure chest. Let me zoom in on that baby.
It looks like you guys are not having, like, this is starting to make sense. This is useful here. This is great. This is great. I love this. Love, 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 love this.
Come on, guys. Isn't that the cutest square you've ever seen?
Ruth, thank you for picking up a couple patterns.
Of course, Jada can even make a square cute. I don't know how you do it. Oh, did someone pick up a pattern?
Ruth said she picked up a couple patterns.
So sorry,
thank you, Ruth.
Missed that. I don't think the
It may not have been today. It might not have been this minute, or like it was just
okay.
She's just kind of mentioning it. So thank you. So there we go. That's the end of row 2. Are we all still we all still doing okay? I feel like at this point you should definitely be able to see the square. So like I said, if you want to pause and like hook up all your loops just to sort of double check the counts on each side of your square, you should have something that looks like this. I love the way this looks as it goes. I feel like it looks like you're creating something other than just a simple granny square. I think this looks so nifty.
Ruth would like to know if you could go back to blue. Would that help to change the color again?
Yeah, I was gonna go to green,
or
like
maybe,
a dark
how
green.
about a completely different color? I think that would be better.
You want me to do the dark green or the blue, everybody?
I would go with the green because then it'll stand out and
it's easier to see that third row.
It's easier to see if you're learning.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we're gonna go to dark green. This way we can really see that third row coming together.
This is a teaching aid.
Yeah, this is a big teaching aid.
This is a teaching aid.
I want everybody to not feel like they're being left behind on anything, because that's an awful feeling. I'm just showing this again because this is the solid double crochet granny square, which is basically the canvas. So you're making this square and you're just adding chain 10 loops into the corners and into the top of the middle stitch of each side. So for example, like this is the middle stitch, so that would get a loop. The stitch right above it is this one, so that would get a loop. the stitch right above it is this one. So that would get a loop. So if I kind of pull it apart, you can see that middle stitch running all the way through the middle of the side. That is the stitch that always gets the chain 10 loop. But if you take out the loops, you're just making this square right here. I love solid double crochet granny squares. We already have a tutorial for it. I linked it in the description box. You can also add these to this year's blanket if you want to make the blanket bigger, if you want to just add nice big chunky blocks of color, whatever you like.
We've got more light bulbs going off.
Oh, sweet. Sweet!
Masha, the light bulbs have popped.
The light bulbs are
Any other light bulbs? We're getting all kinds of light bulbs.
Yes, Laurel, the pattern might become a little wavy after row 4. So like if I pick up my square and I hold it like this, can you see where it wants to wave? You can see that it's like a little bit floppy or wavy, like a sail. Your braided loops are like spines. They're like the mast of a sailing ship, and the fabric between those spines will have a little bit of give to it, a little bit of looseness, a little bit of wave. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's perfectly okay. It's the nature of the pattern. It will flatten itself out when you attach all your squares together. Alternatively, you can block them before you stitch them together if you want. It's perfectly fine. But that's just the nature of the pattern. But if you lay it down flat and you give it a little bit of a gentle blocking, it flattens out. It's the strength that these braided loops give those 8 points to your square. It's like adding a spine. I am not turning at the end of each round. I am just sort of changing colors. If you are not changing colors, you're not turning. We are always going in the same direction. We are not flipping the square. You are always looking at the front of your square. You are never looking at the back of your square. So you are always going in the same direction. Great question. Can you use the solid granny square instead of the March square? Of course you can, Rosie. Of course you can. You can use only the stacked shell stitch square if you want to. The whole purpose of our calendar blankets is usually to have fun exploring a concept, and this year it's granny squares. We are going to bring you 12 unique granny square designs. You can make them all, you can play with them, sample with them. If you don't like one, you do not need to use it. But I really don't want anybody to feel like they're not going to use it just because they don't get it. I want everybody to feel like they understand the pattern at the very least, because sometimes it's been my experience, if I finally tackle a challenging crochet thing and I get it, I just I literally walk around like a peacock. I love it. So I want everybody to at least feel like they understand it before they decide whether or not they want to include it or make a whole bunch or whatever.
Aunt of Angels really gets it.
Who? What?
Aunt of Angels.
Oh, good.
We have a light bulb emoji, a candle emoji.
Oh my gosh, we have a light bulb emoji.
Flashlight emoji, and a electrical plug emoji.
This is so awesome. You guys are the best. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're at the end of row 2. I feel like we're all kind of together. We've all kind of got what's happening here. If I keep picking up my solid double crochet granny square, I've made 3 rows of it here. So that's the end of row 2. If you look at this row, I put my fingers in the corners. You can see row 1, you can see row 2, you can see row 3. So we've just finished row 2. There's 7 double crochet in each side, or 3 double crochet on either side of the middle stitch. Thank you, Roxana. Thank you for picking up a pattern. Ellen says she struggled a bit, but once she got it, this was her favorite so far. I agree. I mean, I love them. I absolutely love the simplicity and the repetition of the stacked shell stitch. This was January square. I love this square. I love the open and closed kind of effect of the doubles and V's. I really enjoyed this one. This was the February square. But I love how there's surface braiding. I love that this one kind of has this extra textural effect. It's so cool. Rest assured, April will not be as confusing. But April will be different again. So
we'll dial it down a little for April.
Amanda says, Jada, for this year's blanket, are you doing a border on each square before joining or just joining them as we are? I am going to be using the mattress stitch, my sweet. So I will be joining them as they are. I will be using the ladder stitch to join them together. Some people call it the mattress stitch. Some people call it the ladder stitch. We will have a specific tutorial on how to do that so you can see it on these squares. But we do have a tutorial that shows you how to join squares using the ladder stitch. If you want to use the ladder stitch, if you want to join as you go, there are no rules for this year's blanket because the border is going to be extremely basic, so it'll fit with anybody's interpretation of this year's blanket. So I want everyone to know that ahead of time. I want you to feel like the reins are off. You can go mental with this blanket. A few of you have already started doing join as you go. If you want to do a join as you go, I'll just take a moment to explain that. You would find it probably easier if you added an extra row to all of your grannies to use as your join as you go row. So if you wanted to use, say, the shell stitch, every single one of your grannies at the end of row 6 will have the same number of stitches. So 23 double crochet at the end of row 6, 23 double crochet at the end of row 6, 23 stitches. So sometimes a stitch isn't a double crochet, it's a chain 1. So you want to make sure when you're counting stitches, you're looking at the top of the stitches so that they all look the same to you and you're not kind of just looking at the, like, obviously there's 3 double crochet in a shell, but there's a chain 1 space in between. Don't forget to count the chains on the side. I exclude the chain 2 in the corners. So I don't count the corner chains, but I do count everything else. So there'll be 23 stitches at the end. Every row 6 will have 23 stitches along its side, every single square. That's the beauty of the math of this year's blanket. So with that in mind, if you were going to do a join as you go and use the shell stitch, I would always start in a corner space and I would start with 3 double crochet. I would go chain 1, join, skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochet, chain 1, join in the next stitch, skip 2 stitches, 3 double crochet, chain 1, join in the next stitch, skip 2 stitches, or I'm sorry, skip 3 stitches. You want to you want to skip the same number of stitches every single time. You'll basically have 7 shells running across each side. 7 shells. It's row 7, you'll have 7 shells. A shell in the corner, a shell in the corner, and 5 shells along the side. And I think they're all going to be 2 or 3 stitches apart. I have to stop and think for 5 seconds. But if you wanted to do that, I would use the shell stitch because it's the join as you go stitch that most of us are familiar with. And you're just slip stitching into the space between shells on the neighboring square. So if you know how to do a join as you go, then I would use the shell stitch and you would add that extra row to every single one of your squares. A few of you have been doing joins like that. I will try my best and go back and find all of the square photographs that people have sent me where they've started to join already. I know Shell is doing, I think Shell's doing a join as you go. Shell, if you're here, if you can confirm that for me. So yes, you can do that. You can sew them together. You can single crochet them together. You can slip stitch them together. You can do anything you want for the joining. I am going to use the mattress stitch. Nice and simple. It's an invisible stitch, so it doesn't matter what color you end your square on because you won't see the joining stitch. Whew, okay. Yes, shell, chain 2, shell. Exactly, Aunt Angels. Destiny! Thank you! Destiny has just gifted a membership. Thank you so much. And Amanda has won it. Congratulations, Amanda. And Ari asks, are we ever going to do a star stitch granny square? A star stitch granny square. I don't think I've even done the star stitch, at least not that little, what I think is commonly known as the star stitch. It's usually seen in a blanket. I don't think we've even done a star stitch tutorial yet, but I like that idea. Okay. Let's move on. So I'm going to put my Jacob's ladder back here. I'm going to switch now to a darker green. Here we go. Joining my new color with a slip stitch. If you didn't change colors, then you are just joined at the top of the chain 3 that began row 2. You just sort of paused, and I'm changing colors though so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to leave my loops hooked up. I think I can probably demonstrate, I can probably show you fairly well just by pulling them out of the way. So let me do that. If it gets confusing, let me know and I'll revert back to the stitch markers. You're looking for the chain 3. There's the chain 3. I fastened off my previous row in the top of the chain 3. I'm going to join my new color in the top of the chain 3. And I know that I have to start the row with a chain 3. The chain 3 counts as a double crochet. You can use a standing double crochet if you want to. I'm using a chain 3. So chain 3, that is the first stitch of the row. The first stitch of the row is always the chain 3. That chain 3 is always the stitch right before the middle stitch of the first side you're working on. So that's the chain 3. Here's the new chain 3. This is the next stitch. This is the middle stitch of the row. So every row starts like this. Chain 3 and the very next stitch is the middle stitch of the row. Everybody got that? We all okay? All right, here we go. If I pull everything apart, pull the loops to the side. So when I'm coming up to the loops, I'm pulling the loops to the left so I can see the top of my stitch. If I'm left-handed, working left-handed, as I'm working up to the loop, I'm pulling the loops to the right. So I want to see the top of the stitch. This is the middle stitch. This is the stitch I will make and then add a chain 10 loop to. So there it is right there. Double crochet into it. So chain 3, double crochet in the next stitch. That is immediately the middle stitch of the row. I'm going to chain 10. Come back down to the top of the double crochet and slip stitch. So there's my new loop made. Join my yarn, chain 3. The very next stitch, this is every row starts this way. Your chain 3 is always right before the middle stitch of the first side. You work that first double crochet, work your first loop. Now you want to pull all of your previous loops to the side. Get them out of the way, just pull them to the side. If you're working right-handed, you pull them to the right. If you're working left-handed, you pull them to the left. Just pause, pull everything to the right, make sure they're on the front, pull the rest of your work the opposite direction, and that will show you where your next stitch is. Here's the stitch, here's the top of it, just pull it apart, pause, take a breath. That's obviously where you need to put your stitch. So that's what we're going to do. Double crochet right into the top of that stitch. Now, here's another thing you can think of. When you've done your chain 3, double crochet, chain 10 loop, double crochet in the next stitch, this is exactly how you began the entire granny square. It's like looking at the beginning of row 1 all over again. Chain 3, double crochet, chain 10 loop, double crochet. Every side or every row starts like this. Okay, so that's the first 3 taken care of. I'll just pull my loops. You know what? I'll even pull that loop up and get it out of the way. All right, now where am I? Well, I just worked this double crochet. So I know I've got the 2 double crochet from the corner before. There they are, 1, 2. I got to put a double crochet in each of those. So double crochet in each of those stitches. Okay. Oh, I'm at a corner space. All right. Well, when I get to a corner space, I have to put 2 double crochet into it because every side increases by 4 double crochet every row. So there's 2 new double crochet on the corner this side, 2 new double crochet in the corner on that side. And that's how your sides grow by 4 stitches every row. Or every row grows by 16 double crochet in total, 4 per side. Okay, so there's my 2 double crochet in the new corner. Now I've got to create a corner. A corner is chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, chain 1, there's the chain 10, find the 10th chain and slip stitch into it to create the chain 10 loop, and chain 1. So that's the new corner made. Chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Just for fun, I'm going to pull that new loop through the loop from the previous row. All right. Pull everything to the side. There's on the other side of my loops, there's the rest of that corner. Well, in order to do this side, I've got to bumper all those stitches with 2 double crochet in each corner space. So 2 double crochet in each stitch, double crochet in the middle stitch, make the chain 10 loop, double crochet in each stitch, and then when I get to the other corner, I have to add 2 double crochet. So 2 double crochet in this corner to start, making sure all of my loops are pulled to the front. And I'm going to pause. Okay. Can we see that corner? Audrey says, I'm curious if anyone knows how many 6-row granny squares can be made from one skein of yarn. Audrey, how big is the skein of yarn? Is it 50 yards? Is it 150 yards? Is it 350 yards? Skeins vary. They all vary in the amount of yarn, even inside the brand. So a Red Heart Super Saver might have, say, 350 yards if it's a solid color. It'll have fewer yards if it's a variegated or a self-striping color, even though it's still a Super Saver. So you got to know how many yards are in a skein. It's better to ask how many yards are in the square or in the project. That's much more helpful, because if I misunderstand you and I assume you're using 50-yard skeins and I say, oh, you need 100 of them, you'll go out and buy 100 350-yard skeins and you'll have so much yarn left. You'll be like, what was she thinking? So yardage. Every skein will say on the label how much yardage or meterage or grams or ounces are on it. So you always want to look there. Each of these 6-row granny squares takes more or less 40 yards. Now, if you're going to break it up into colors, that could be 12 to 15 yards if you're using 3 colors, around 20 yards each if you're using 2 colors, about 40 to 45 yards in total per 6-row square. So have that in your head. And if you know you need about 40 yards or so for a granny square and you've got a 50-yard skein, you'll know you're only going to get one. Like if you only use one color, you're only getting 1 square out of that 50-yard skein. But most skeins are a little bit more than that. But keep 40 yards per square in your head, and that'll help you kind of do the math while you're sniffing through your yarn labels, or if you're going yarn shopping. I hope that helps. So Cheryl's going to try braiding as she goes. Yep. Good. Will, look, we were doing okay. Okay, all right. So that's the corner. I've looped up the corner loops just to get them out of the way. Maybe give it a little more, give myself a little bit of a break with all the jingle jangling stitch markers. But before I left that corner, 2 double crochet in the corner space, right? That sets me up for my next side. Okay, here we go. If I pull the loops and the corner apart, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. This is the middle stitch. I know that because the loop is attached to it. But more importantly, I can see that these 2 stitches were the corner stitches from the row before. And that stitch sits on top of this stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, the middle stitch, and 1, 2, 3 from the previous row. I'm going from 7 stitches on one side of row 2 to 11 stitches on one side in row 3. So I have to add 2 stitches to either side. Then that means I have to do 3, the middle, the 3, and then the 2 corner stitches. So 2 corner stitches, 1, 2, 3, the middle stitch, chain 10 loop, 1, 2, 3, 2 more stitches over here. So here we go. 2 double crochet in the corner, done. Double crochet in each stitch leading up to the new loop. Well, there's 3 double crochet on either side of the middle stitch. So I'll get my first 3 done. I know I'm getting up to the middle stitch. If I'm confused, I just kind of pull everything out of the way and I go, okay, that's the stitch. I got to work there. That's the middle stitch. Now at this point, if you still have trouble figuring out where your loops are attached, that's why it might be helpful to always be marking the middle stitch. So if you're always marking the middle stitch, when you get there and you work the new middle stitch, you know that's where you've got to put your chain 10 loop. But I think it's pretty obvious, I would say, that this loop is attached to this stitch. Does that look pretty obvious to you guys? Either way, you know you had to go 1, 2, 3, there's the middle stitch. Next row, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, middle stitch. Next row, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, middle stitch. I think The numbers, are we helping? Is that helping? Does the yardage needed stay the same if you change yarn weights? Great question, Masha. It does change. 1 yard of bulky weight yarn is the same length as a yard of medium size 4 yarn, but you can probably get more double crochets out of a yard of medium size 4 yarn than you can out of a yard of bulky weight yarn. So the amount of yarn needed per square may change if you are drastically changing the yarn weight. So I would say if you are using DK weight, size 3 lightweight, medium weight, size 4 worsted, or chunky size 5 Aran weight yarn, your yardage is going to be roughly the same, especially if you're using the same size hook. It's not going to vary much. Maybe you're going to need a little bit more if you're using the chunky weight. Maybe you're going to need a little bit less if you're using the lightweight DK 3 weight yarn. But if you're upsizing to a bulky weight, I know a couple of you are using blanket yarn to make these squares. You may find that you end up using more than 40 yards for that super size 6 chunky, bulky, super bulky weight yarn. So yes, if you're using, think of it like this. The bigger the yarn, the more yardage you'll probably need. The skinnier or thinner or lighter weight the yarn, the less yardage you will probably need. And yes, the square will be bigger with a 5 weight. That's right, Janice. It will be much bigger. Great. Okay, so here we go. We've double crocheted the 2 double crochets in the corner space. We've double crocheted in each stitch all the way up to the middle stitch. We put a double crochet in the middle stitch. Now we're going to make the chain 10 loop. Yarning is off. Yarntopia, thank you for hanging out with us today. Chain 10, slip stitch into the top of that double crochet to create your loop. Okay. Going to take those loops from the previous row, pull them out of the way. Always take your loops, pull them to the front, pull them out of the way. If you're right-handed, pull them to the front and to the right. If you're working left-handed, pull them to the front and to the left. Take the rest of your work, just tug gently, and you can see there's my next stitch. There's the top of it, so I'm working into it right there. Double crochet. And I know that there's only 3 stitches left before I get to the corner. So that's 1 of 3. I'm working over top of what were the 2 corner stitches from the previous row. So that's 1, 2, 3. And now, sure enough, I'm up to the corner. I have to work 2 double crochet into the corner. And then I want to pause. This is row 3. Row 3 should have 11 double crochet across each side. So if I take a stop and I look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's my loop, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 double crochet per side. The middle stitch is kind of sitting to the side because the loops from the previous row have to squeeze in somewhere. But I know that's the middle stitch. It got the loop. There are 5 double crochets on either side of it because 11 is a middle stitch with 5 on either side. 7 is a middle stitch with 3 on either side. And then 3 is 1 stitch with 1 on either side. So I know math isn't everybody's favorite cup of tea, but my gosh, it does make a pretty awesome square. Dawn had her shelves collapse last Friday. Well, that stinks. Too much yarn, Dawn, too much yarn. Okay, here we go. We have finished all the double crochet required for this side. I've put my 2 double crochet in the corner, so now I need to make a corner. What's a corner? A corner is chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, chain 1, slip stitch into the 10th chain. There's my chain 10 loop and chain 1. So chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Pull those existing loops out of the way. I'm still in the corner. I've got to work 2 double crochet on the other side of those loops into the corner space because every row from row 2 onwards is 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet. That's what goes into a corner space. And I'm going to hook up that loop too. I'll hook up this middle loop as well. There we go. How are we doing here? So there's a nice corner. Look for the dark green. You can sort of see that corner appearing. You can see the corner appearing over here. Still in Leather says, dare I ask, not to confuse, but could you not just go with 2 double crochet, chain 10 slip stitch, 2 double crochet for the start of the center? Would that one extra stitch make that much of a difference? So the corners, you need a corner space in order to work the double crochets of the next row into it. You need a corner space. Your loop is not the space. Your loop is the actual braiding mechanism. You need to create the corner space in order to be able to have room to put 4 double crochets into it, basically. So the chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. The chain 1s on either side of your loop. So let me get my little drawing out here. So these curved things are corners. The purple dashes are the chain 1s that create the space, and the green is the loop. The chain 1 is what is giving you room to put your 2 double crochet on either side in the successive rows. So every corner from row 2 onward is 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet before you start double crocheting into all of those stitches. So those 2 chain 1s create a corner space. They create a 90-degree angle. You're adding a chain loop into the middle of it to get this cool kind of like braided spine effect going off on an angle. And you need those chains on either side of the loop in order to create the room, to create the 90-degree corner, to create the room too, to add 4 double crochets into it for the next row and the next row and the next row and so on. So I hope that helps clear that up. I'm gonna have another sip of my water here. Hello everybody. If you're just joining us, welcome. We are doing a super deep dive. I'm talking about the middle doubles. Oh, still in the middle doubles. Okay, so let me think about what you just said and then I'll figure it out again. You said 2 double crochet, chain 10, 2 slip stitch, double crochet for the start of the center. Could you not just go with 2 double crochet, chain 10, slip stitch, double? Yes, if that helps you, will that one extra stitch make that much of a difference? Now I'm still confused. Okay, so in the center, in beginning of row 3 or row 1, you have to have 3 double crochet on each side of your square. 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet. You're putting the chain 10 loop in the top of the middle stitch. And the chain 10 loop always goes into the top of the middle stitch. The middle stitch is always in the top of the middle stitch from the previous row. So that's what you're doing. You've always got the same number of stitches on either side of the middle stitch. So you've got a double crochet, the middle stitch with the loop, and a double crochet in row 1. In row 2, you've added 2 stitches on either side. So you've got 3 double crochet, the middle stitch, the loop, and 3 double crochet. In row 3, you're again adding more stitches. You're always adding 2 double crochet to the corners. So now you have 5 double crochet, the middle stitch, the loop, and 5 double crochet. This creates balance. It creates an evenness, and it's also just because every row grows by 4 double crochet per side, or 16 double crochet in total for the whole row. So you absolutely have to have the right stitch count because every square in this project has the exact same stitch count per row, whether it's a double crochet or a combination of double crochets and chains. But you absolutely have to have the right stitch count. We are creating the loops, which are kind of ignored. They are additional texture, but by the time we get to the last row, if I hold that up, you can see that in the last row, we don't create a loop in the last row. In the last row, we are just anchoring the previous row's loops. We are not adding any extra chains or anything, and if you count it up, excluding your chain 2 corner spaces, you've got 23 stitches all the way across. There's nothing extra over top of that loop. You're just anchoring the loop into the edge of your square. And it doesn't matter how many rows large you make this square, your second last row is a typical chain 10 loop row, but your last row of the square, you're not making any loops, you're just anchoring the existing loops. And that way you will have the right number of stitches when you finish the row, so that this square fits with all the other squares in the project. They all have 23 stitches at the end of row 6 along each side. I hope that helps. If you do 4 double crochet, you'll be able to have 2 double crochet, a chain, and 2 double crochet. Yeah, but then you'd have 4 double crochet, and you can't have 4 double crochet. You have to have 3 double crochet. You don't want 4, because then if you have 4 in row 1 and you add 4 in row 2, you'll have 8. And then if you have 4 in row, if you have 8 in row 2 and you add 4, you'll have 12, and so on and so on and so on, and you will not have 23 stitches across the end of your row. And if you are doing the chains in between, so if you do a double crochet and the chain 10 loop and a double crochet, you will have a massive hole. And even if you loop all those things together, I've tried it. If you're not always creating the loop and making it a closed loop, you end up with a big hole, and it doesn't look right. And you get this big gaping hole that runs all the way through your thing. So you actually have to create the loop, and the loop really does need to be in the top of something. I hope that helps. So you need the right number of stitches so that this square matches all the other ones. You have to anchor the loop in the top of a stitch, and the loop itself has to be anchored at the bottom. You can't just leave it open. And that loop sits in the middle of a stitch, so you have an even number on both sides. Every single row, that middle stitch always has the same number, has an even number on both sides. So it's 3 and 3, or it's 5 and 5, or it's 7 and 7. In row 1, it's 1 and 1. The middle stitch is like that unique little middle, and that's why you end up with this effect, so that your braids always look like they're perfectly evenly spaced, because they are evenly spaced. There's the same number of stitches on either side of the stitch that those loops are being braided up across, and then there's the same thing is happening up the corner. So you have to kind of anchor them in a stitch, and you have to have the same number on either side. And there are no silly questions, Anna. There's been a yarn floating on the internet, a Red Heart Granny Square yarn. Can you get that in Canada too? Yes, we can. I haven't bothered to go get it yet. I've had people talking to me about how some of them think it's great, some of them think it's meh. So I haven't bothered to get any yet, but I might. Summer made an entire cardigan for her daughter using it, and it looks really great. So I know some people are having real luck with it, but I'll pick up a ball if I'm in the mood and I find it when I'm out next. So I haven't been out, I haven't seen it yet, but I might. Yeah, no silly questions. Okay, you need an odd number. You need a middle stitch to put the next row stitch in it, says Regina. I think Regina's trying to explain things here. Still in leather, got the picot thing. Yes, like a picot. Exactly. Thank you for asking the questions. This is helpful for everybody, I'm sure. So this is great. Okay, so let's continue. We're on row 3. I've just finished my full second corner, 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet. I'm just braiding up my loops as I go, but you can see there's 2 double crochet on one side, there's the corner made and the loop, and then 2 double crochet on the other side. So here we go. I'm looking at the previous row, 3 double crochet, the middle stitch, and 3 double crochet. So let's do this. I pull back so I can really see where my next stitch is going to go. Double crochet, double crochet, double crochet. All right, that brings me up to the middle stitch right here. If I pull it apart, I can see clearly where I need to put my hook. And now I work the chain 10 loop. Come on back down, anchor it into the top of like a giant picot. Anchor it in the top of that double crochet. Pull all the previous rows loops to the side. Now I get them out of the way. I hold them with my thumb. I pull everything else in the other direction and I look. If I'm pulling on the loop, I can see the anchoring pulling away. There's the next top of a stitch. Easy to see if I just pause and pull it apart. I double crochet into it, and I know that there's that stitch plus 2 more. Those are the 3 from the previous row. And that means I should be at the corner. I am. I need to put 2 double crochet in that corner space before I even start the corner. So there we go. So quick count. 2 double crochet in the corner, a double crochet in each of those 3. There's the middle stitch. There's the loop in the middle stitch. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for picking up some patterns. There's the 3 double crochet from the previous row and my 2 new double crochet in the corner. So 2 plus 7 plus 2 is 11. So I'm up to 11 double crochet. 2, 3, the middle, 3, and 2. Right? I'm just going to loop up that loop.
We have a question from Janice.
Sure. Let me just lay this down. Everybody can get a look at it. Janice, maybe it would be a good idea to put a stitch marker in the middle stitch as soon as you make every side ladder chain, so you can easily identify those stitches as you come back around to it. Yes, I recommended that at the beginning of the video. That's what my red stitch markers here are representing, because I did have them there. If that helps you to identify that middle stitch, mark it with a stitch marker. I highly recommend that. If I were to take out all these loops, then this would be me marking the middle stitch. And when I get up to it on the next row, so if I mark the middle stitch, you can see how obvious that is now. When I get up to it, I know that's where I've got to put my next double crochet. That also tells me it's the middle stitch and I need to work my loop. So if you want to use the stitch marker on the middle stitch, I highly recommend that. Yes, thank you for bringing that back up, Janice. I tried that on the first and second row. I think it works okay. It might be much easier to see on successive rows, because obviously the more double crochets you're adding in as every row, the square is getting bigger. So your markers are going to be further apart, so they won't be all jangled up and stuff on top of each other. But we're going to try every different method here, just so we can kind of find something that works for everybody. Gonna have a sip of my water here. No, it's okay, Janice. I'm glad you mentioned it. I'm glad you mentioned it. People are popping in and out this whole time, so it's good.
This is a Q&A after all. Bring on the granny square questions.
Bring on the questions. We are here to make sure everybody's got it. No need to feel sorry.
Lay them on thick.
Yes. All right. So back to... So that's my 2 double crochet in the corner space. So now I need to create the new corner. A corner is chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Here we go. Chain 1. So there's chain 10. I come back, slip stitch into the 10th chain from the hook. That's the chain 10 loop, and I chain 1. Chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. All right, pull all the previous loops in the other corner out of the way. There's the other side of the corner. 2 double crochet in the corner. So the corners, 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet. Remember, you're always pulling those previous loops out of the way so you can see what you're doing. I'm going to just loop them up. Looks nice as we go. All right. A row 2 side, I should say, had 7 double crochet. So I know that I start with 2 double crochet in the corner. There they are. I know that I have to do, if there's 7 double crochet from the previous row's side, that means that there's 3 and then the middle and then 3. So I make sure I see 1, 2, 3. That tells me that's the middle. So let's do 1, 2, 3. Hi, Lynette. Lynette, thank you so much. Thank you, Lynette. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I love it. Now we can like them too. I think that's so sweet. Thank you so much.
Yes. YouTube gave us the ability to like them and love them. Sometimes that button doesn't work though. It's a bit glitchy.
So we've got 2 double crochet in the corner, a double crochet in the first 3 stitches. That means that I'm up to the middle stitch of the previous row. There it is. If it's the middle stitch needs the chain 10 loop. So let's do that. Come on back down and slip stitch into the top of that double crochet. Try not to split my yarn. There we go. Grab the loops from the previous row. Make sure that they are on the front. They are forward. Pull to the right if I'm right-handed. Pull to the left if I'm working left-handed. Just stretch out that row and I can clearly see where I need to put my next stitch. It's right here. That's the stitch post and the stitch top is just to the right of it. If I'm working left-handed, it's just to the left. Double crochet in that. I know there's at least 2 more and then that will bring me up to the next corner. There we go. That's my next corner. I've got to work 2 double crochet into the corner space. I've got to create the next corner. So I need to go chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1.
Do we have a video on the 4-leaf clover? I feel like we do.
Yep.
An applique.
Yep. We have.
I will dig that up.
We do. We have a.
I'll go deep down into the basement archives of Jada and Stitch's channel.
So 2 double crochet in the corner space. The new corner, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Move those other corner loops out of the way, and before you leave the corner space, 2 double crochet into it, and that sets you up for the next side. That's the first 2 double crochet along the next side. Let's just pause. I'm going to pull out, so. Oh my, Lisa, thank you. Thank you so much for picking up a pattern. I'm going to put my red stitch markers on my side loops, and I'm going to keep my corner loops in blue and yellow. I think the little 4-leaf clover that we've got the tutorial for, which is an applique, I think it's too small to be turned into a granny square, but I would like to make a granny square that has a 4-leaf clover in the middle. I think that'd be really cute. Okay, so let's just pausing here. We have come back around to the first side, the side on which we started. So there's the chain 3 that we finished the previous row with, and here's the chain 3 above it that we started the row with. Every time you start a row in this pattern, you are always chaining 3 to start the row. That chain 3 always sits directly on top of the chain 3 from the previous row, and that means you're always right next to where the first middle stitch chain 10 loop goes. So the chain 3 is always right before the middle stitch. The middle stitch of the row gets the chain 10. Thank you, Carlene. Thank you so much for picking up a pattern. And that way you know if the chain 3 is the stitch before the middle stitch, you just sort of, if you get confused, just pull your work apart and go, okay, that's the chain 3. There's the chain 3 sitting on top of it. There's the 2 stitches from the previous row. I need to make sure I put a double crochet in each of them. Or you say to yourself, well, it's row 3. Each side in row 3 has 11 stitches. So let me see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Pull it this way. There's number 6. That's the middle stitch. 7. Here's 8 and 9. I just added them to the corner, which means I need 2 stitches left. Well, there they are right there. 1, 2. That's 10 and 11. So if you get confused, just stop, do a little counting. We've got a double crochet in each of those remaining stitches, and that brings us up to the chain 3. There's the chain 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the top of it. And there we go. Let's put that stitch marker in there. And I will cut my yarn again. Let me just weave in those tails quickly so that they're out of the way and they're not distracting.
Kind of makes me think a little bit of the hidden objects games that we play sometimes. The little square looks like it's hidden amongst the loops.
Yeah, it kind of does. You have to sort of see
it's
beyond.
It's there, but you have to kind of see it.
sneaky.
There are no dumb questions.
No. There are no dumb questions.
Dumb questions do not exist.
Okay. Let's take a look where we're at. We are at the end of row 3. At the end of row 3, you will still have 8 chain 10 loops. 4 of them are in the corners. 4 of them are along the side. The chain 10 loops along the side are always anchored in the center stitch. If you were looking at a plain double crochet granny square, solid double crochet granny square, the middle stitch is easy to find. You would just count 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. Number 6. There it is in the middle. So the loop is going to always be in the middle stitch. You will always have an even number or the same number of stitches on either side of that middle stitch. So this is my middle stitch. In row 1, I've got 1 on either side. In row 2, I have 3 on either side. In row 3, I have 5 on either side. In row 4, I have 7 on either side. In row 5, I have 9 on either side. And on row 6, I have 11 on either side. So keep that in mind. I think that's right. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Yes. If you ignore the loops, so see past the loops, you should see the square. The green creates the square. It's like an optical illusion. Kind of digging this colorway. I just grabbed these 3 yarns because I figured they were thin and you'd be able to see what I'm doing. But I like it. Okay. How are we doing? Guys, I'm going to take a quick break, grab some water. So if you have any questions about where we're at so far, please feel free to leave them in chat. Mystery Stitches will keep an eye on things. Renee, thank you for picking up a pattern. I'll be right back. I'm just going to get some more water. All right. So
we had a couple of pattern sales.
Oh, wow. Let me see if I can see who they were. So Renee, just before I took off to grab some water, thank you. And Karen as well. Thank you, Karen, for picking up a couple of patterns. Thank you so much. Okay, let me see here. We've got some questions. Yarn Life says, this is just going to be small squares, or could this be bigger? They look awesome. Okay, so all of the squares in this year's Granny Square blanket, I am making them 6 rows. All of them can be a few rows bigger. Some of them can be upsized infinitely, really. For example, our stacked shells granny can be infinitely upsized, and it really doesn't change the pattern. It doesn't warp. It doesn't look funny. The doubles and V's can be made infinitely larger. It just needs a bit of blocking because it tends to want to be a little bit wider than it is tall. But that's just the nature of the stitches squeezing them apart. So not a big deal. This one, the Jacob's Ladder square, can definitely be made larger, but the space between the spines will keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it might look, if you made this a huge blanket, it might make the braided effect look really small and kind of silly. So I wouldn't go much bigger than maybe like a 16-inch version of this, which, depending on, you know, your yarn and your hook and your tension, I don't know how many rows that would be, but I'm saying like 16 inches. I think you're going to sort of start to get to a point where there's just, it looks like there's maybe too much space between your spines or your braided columns. But yes, you can make all of the squares in this year's Granny Square more rows, but if you intend to join them all together, you want to make sure they're all the same number of rows. That way they will have the right number of stitches across each side so that they will match up properly. So, we're still good. Still, Dizzy's still untangling. Okay, all right. This cow is great. Oh, no problem. Cheryl, I am happy to do it. We are just happy to be able to try and help out here. Yes, there is no such thing as a problem, Melanie. There are only opportunities. I love that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Mandarin character for crisis is actually a combination of 2 characters. One that means opportunity and the other one that means like opportunity and problem. It's like the 2 come together, and that's the symbol for crisis, but it actually means like problem equals opportunity kind of thing. And I love that. I really am trying to sort of see my life through that lens to kind of see things. Oh, there's a problem. Well, is there an opportunity here? It's really hard to change your brain. But I like trying to see things that way. It helps. Let me see here. Jada, what is your favorite stitch to make a blanket for? Mine is a chevron. I don't even know if I could answer that. I like so many of them. That's a fun question, though. Other questions? Are there questions? Too bad I don't have an infinite wallet. I agree, Anna. Okay, so looks like we're doing okay. Do we want to do another row? Does everybody feel like they've got it, or do they feel like one more row would kind of help? I feel like once you kind of get to the end of row 3, you've got it. Row 4 and 5 and 6 and the bigger the square gets, it's a lot easier to see. You're just making sure that you get a double crochet into each existing double crochet and 2 more into the corners on either side. You always want to make sure you're looking for that middle stitch. The middle stitch always gets the loop. If it helps to mark it, mark the middle stitch with a stitch marker. Maybe if it helps, you can mark the back of the stitch of the row. Like, so if you want to, you know, keep the stitch markers to a dull roar, maybe marking the stitch on the back might be helpful, just so it's not in your way. There's always going to be the same number of stitches on, so if this is the middle stitch, you're always going to have the same number of stitches on either side. In any row, it's the number of stitches per side changes per row, but there will always be, so if it's 3 on one side, it'll be 3 on the other. If it's 5 on the other side, it'll be 5 on the other. So the middle stitch is sort of that extra special stitch. It's always in the middle of the row, and that's always where the chain 10 loop goes. You can send pictures of your finished squares, little white wolf, to our Etsy shop. Mr. and Stitches will make sure that link is, I think it's up top. If you click on the link, it'll take you to our Etsy shop. Just click on message seller and there will be an opportunity for you to attach a photo or take a photo. I think you're clicking on a little camera icon or a little landscape picture avatar kind of icon. It depends on the software you're using. And Felicia says, one more row, please. Okay. Cheryl said row 4 is where it came together. Okay, we're going to do one more row. One more row, one more row. You got it, my darlings. We will do one more row. Let's go. Okay. I'm going to go back to, the blue. Would that make sense if I went back to the blue? It's the first color we used. Or would that, does that make sense to everybody if I go back to the blue? That's the first color.
I think so.
The double crochet granny square next to the current work I think would be helpful for everyone. That did it for me, says Regina. Okay, well let's just double check this. So here we go, before I start row 4. This is the exact same square. It's the same number of rows. It just doesn't have the chain 10 loops. So a solid double crochet granny square, 1, 2, 3 rows. Jacob's ladder granny square, 1, 2, 3 rows. It's the same number of stitches per side in each square.
It'll fit right over top. And then pinch it together and flip it so we can see on the camera. It's the exact same size. Ba-bow.
Yeah. So, like I said, you can use the solid double crochet granny square. We have a tutorial. It's linked down below in the description box. You can use it for this blanket this year as well. And it is essentially the canvas that we build our Jacob's ladder square onto. It's matches says do red. I think if you guys want to see a fourth color, just so these colors aren't confusing, I will grab another color. I'm gonna keep the red.
Red might be a little hard to see the stitches.
Yeah, so I'll go grab another color. But basically,
but the blue would work because it's I mean, there's 2 colors in between.
well, the blue is sort of like getting carried,
it's
so
almost touching. Okay,
it's okay. I'll just grab another. It's not like I have I don't have infinite yarn scraps or anything.
Anna has a very poignant, serious question.
Anna says, "Who's Jacob?" Anna, I believe Jacob is. This is a reference to Jacob from the Bible. I am not a Bible scholar, so I do not know the story, but I understand it has something to do with a ladder that Jacob built, something about a ladder to God. I don't know, but that is apparently where the title comes from. Jacob's ladder is a story from the Bible, I believe.
I believe you are correct.
I bet there's somebody in the chat who knows that story and can maybe give us a synopsis. But this is the exact same square. We are just remembering to add a chain 10 loop in every chain 2 corner. So the chain 2 corner, usually a corner is 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. In this case, it's 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet. So that's the corners from row 2 onward. And the middle stitch of each side always gets a chain 10 loop, and that's what's happening here. Crochet with Diane, who's been a member for 41 months. Thank you, Diane, says, it looks like curlers in a hairdo. Kind of, yeah.
It does. I see it.
All right, so let me find another color. I'm going to find a color. Oh, maybe I'll use this one.
Especially before they're all linked together. Before you link the loops together, it looks like kind of like one of those mop ends that you you know the floor shark that you clean the floor with.
The floor, yes. You think it looks like that?
It kind of looks like that. Yeah, don't those things have a whole bunch of hooks on them?
Maybe. Oh, this'll do. This'll do. What's this? What's this? Oh. Huh. What's that I was working on? I don't know, but I'm pulling it apart. Okay. Found some more yarn, guys. And I'm going to use this is the same size yarn. It's a size 3 lightweight, DK weight, baby weight. I'm trying to use a lighter weight yarn for demonstration purposes because I feel like it's easier to see the stitches. And there's little blue flecks in it, so that kind of works. Oh my goodness. Teresa, thank you. Thank you for picking up a pattern. Okay, all right, all right. Okay, so I'm going to start row 4. I'm going to use a different color for row 4. I think that's a great idea, gang, just so we can continue to see the changes. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. I'm going to join with a slip stitch, just like I did. You know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to do both squares at the same time. This might really help. Okay, so here we go. Joining my yarn with a slip stitch in the top of the chain 3. So there's the top of the chain 3. If you didn't change colors, you're just right here. And we chain 3 to begin the row. Everybody chains 3 to begin the row. The chain 3 is always directly on top of the chain 3s from the previous row. So chain 3, chain 3, chain 3, chain 3. The chain 3 at the beginning of the row is always right before the middle stitch on the first side. So that's the middle stitch. We're going to double crochet into it. If it's the middle stitch, it needs the chain 10 loop. So here we go. Chain 10 loop and slip stitch to join in the top of the double crochet. And Melanie is asking a question. Hang on, Melanie. Let me just get my chain 10 loop here. Melanie says, do you have to start the ladder stitches from the center? Could you maybe start them on the 3rd row, sort of giving the ladder a grounding base? You could. You would have a solid 2 rows of just plain square, and then a 3rd row that also looks solid because that loop will always sit sort of over top of the row above it. So you would have the middle of your square would basically look like this, and then the loops would start. So yes, you could start the loops a few rows out if you wanted. Again, always putting them in the middle top of the middle stitch. It would just make the center of your square bigger before your loops start. Yes, of course you can do that. That would look kind of cool, actually. Fairy Queen says, when you slip stitch the loop in, do you put the next stitch in the same stitch or next to it? I think I understand what you're asking. So here we go. When you chain 10 and slip stitch, you're slip stitching into the top of the double crochet you just made. And then, so when you slip stitch the loop, do you put it in the next stitch, in the same stitch, or next to it? So when you chain 3, or if this is a double crochet, the middle stitch of the row is the stitch that gets the whole chain 10 everything. So you make the middle stitch, you make a regular double crochet, chain 10 and slip stitch into the top of that double crochet that you just chained 10 out of. So everything happens in that middle stitch. Double crochet, chain 10, slip stitch into the top of that stitch. I hope that kind of makes sense. Teresa, thank you so much for picking up the pattern. So that's the double crochet, chain 10. You want to pull everything out of the way. Pull the loops from the previous row out of the way to the right if you're right-handed, out of the way to the left if you're working left-handed. I say working left-handed. I want to make myself clear because I know some of you are left-handed and you actually work right-handed. So you're left-handed, you're holding your hook in the other hand, but you're actually going in the same direction that I am. You're working right-handed, but you're left-handed. If you're left-handed and you're working left-handed, you're working in the opposite direction that I am. And this works exactly the same either way. It's just that I want to be clear. If you're working left-handed, it means you're going in the other direction. So you pull everything apart and you can see where your next stitch is. It's this little guy right here, and the stitch sits right on top of it. That's where you want to put your hook. right? So you chain 3, double crochet. Right after the chain 3 that begins the row is the middle stitch. So you chain 10, slip stitch to make the loop, and then you continue double crocheting. Double crochet into the next stitch. If you have trouble seeing it, pull your loop always to the front and to the side, and you can see where you need to put your stitch. If you had 11 stitches on each side in row 3, you must have 15 stitches on each side in row 4. So you double crochet in each stitch up to the chain 2 space, double crochet twice into the space, and it's time to make a corner. Chain 1, chain 10 loop, slip stitch to that 10th chain, that makes your loop, and chain 1. So there's your corner. Chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. Pull everything out of the way. You're not done with that corner space yet. You need to work 2 more double crochets into it. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for picking up a pattern. So I'm just going to pull up on that. Let me hook up my loops so you can sort of see this. So that's a middle loop. That's a corner loop. I'm just going to quickly do it on this side. So this is the ladder, the Jacob's ladder. It's basically braiding loops on the base of a solid double crochet granny square. If you were not doing the ladders, this is what it would look like for the row 4. You'll see that I'm joined in the top of the chain 3 and I'm like partway through the row. But if I pull it apart, that chain 3 is right before the middle stitch. This is the middle stitch. This is the chain 3. Your row always finishes at the top of the chain 3. You chain 3 to begin the new row, and that is always just before the middle stitch of the row. So let's say you chain 3. You double crochet into the next stitch. That's the middle stitch. You would now build your chain 10 loop, slip stitch, and you continue. Here's the next stitch, so you double crochet into it. And your first side of your new row always starts like practically halfway through the row or halfway through the side. So you're double crocheting in every single stitch. That brings you up to a chain 2 corner. Now this one doesn't have a loop in it, but it's no different than these corners other than the loop is missing. 2 double crochet into the corner. Chain 2. Now, if it was the ladders, the Jacob ladder crochet, you add your chain loop before you change your second corner stitch. So chain 2, or in this case, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. You're not done with that corner space. 2 more double crochet. So your corner is 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. That creates the corner. That's the 2 new double crochet for this side, before you add the other 2 new double crochet on the other side, right? So we just did that, but we added a chain 10 loop into the middle of it. Does that make sense to everybody? So both of these squares are now at exactly the same place. Let me put my hook back in my loop so it's not so messy. Can we all see that? Both of these squares are in the exact same place. I'm going to have a sip of water here. Hi, Colt.
Can you move them up a little bit? Just a little bit?
Yes.
A little more?
Cheryl says makes total sense. I am so happy to hear that.
If it makes sense, I want to see light bulbs in the chat. Light bulbs only.
Janice, if you're working left-handed, just remember that whatever I say, so if I say, you know, okay, pull your loops to the front and to the right if you're right-handed, working right-handed. If you're working left-handed, you pull your loops to the front and to the left. The top of the stitch, if you're working right-handed, is on the right side. The top of the stitch, if you're working left-handed, is on the left side. And light bulbs, I see light bulbs. Oh, you guys are so wonderful. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Colt. Colt says hi.
Colt really likes your colors you chose.
Well, I appreciate that. I like these too. I think it's kind of sharp. Darla, thank you. Thank you for picking up a pattern.
Just so you know, everyone is extremely appreciative of today's sort of, extra tutorial.
Super deep dive.
Yeah, because everyone loves the square. It's beautiful.
I love the square
but it's
too.
a little bit tricky.
Coco, I can't take credit for designing the Jacob's ladder stitch. That is an existing stitch. The whole kind of surface looping, braiding of loops. And I know there are versions of this square out there, but I did design this one insofar as I built it from the ground up and I wrote down the pattern as I went. I've never made this square before, so...
it's also designed to go with our 2024 calendar
It's
blanket.
also specifically designed to go with all the other squares in this blanket. So all the squares in this blanket project this year are designed by me insofar as I've made them work so that the math is perfect right across the board for all 12 of them. So in that sense, yes, but I am definitely blending an existing concept of the Jacob's ladder into the existing concept of a solid double crochet granny square. I'm just making sure that all of the math works. And that's another reason that I'm really happy to do a full deep dive like this with everybody.
Are you
because
a nerd?
if I don't feel I've made myself clear enough, I don't want anyone to think that...
Hey Jade, are you a math nerd?
I am definitely a math nerd. Yes, I love
Jade is
math.
totally a math nerd.
I want everybody I want everyone to understand. So if I think I've made myself clear, but maybe I haven't, and it looks like from the comments I wasn't clear enough, then I am happy to do this because I love this square and I want everybody else to like it too. Custom. Yes, Dizzy, that's the word. It's a custom version of a Jacob's Ladder granny square. I'm sure other versions exist, but this one's custom to fit with the rest of our blanket.
That's a good way of
Perfect
putting it.
word for it. Thank you.
Customized.
Yes, a good prerequisite for this version of the square, for the Jacob's Ladder square, is the solid double crochet granny square. I think I may have mentioned that at some point. It's all starting to run together. The problem with planning out a years-long project ahead of schedule is that you're not sure what you've said already and what you haven't. So
I forgot what I said yesterday. I forgot the thought I had 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, you
I'm
do
sure
end
it was
up with
food related.
All right, my sweets. Okay, let's continue with row 4. Both these squares are at the same place, so let's turn them and continue working.
I will link the solid double crochet granny square tutorial in the chat if anyone wants to grab it.
It's also linked in the description box. So
it's the solid double, right?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. So I've already finished that corner. There's my 2 double crochet into the corner space. So now I'm just going to sort of pull this apart. Let me take a look. The previous row had 11 stitches in it. The middle stitch sits on its own. So on either side of the middle stitch, there would be 5. So 11 stitches. What's the middle of 11? Doesn't matter. Take 1 away from 11. What have you got? 10. Divide 10 in half. What do you got? 5. That means there's 5 double crochet I've got to see and do before I get to the middle stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There they all are. So 2 double crochet in the corner, double crochet in each of the next 5, because I know that's exactly half of the stitches along the side from the previous row before I get to the middle stitch. So that's number 5. Okay. That means I've arrived at the middle stitch. Here it is, right there. Double crochet into it. Because it's the middle stitch, that means it needs its chain 10 loop. Here we go. There we go. Chain 10, slip stitch into the top of that double crochet that you just made. Take all loops, make sure they are on the front, to the right. If you're working left-handed, on the front, to the left. Pull gently, and there's the next stitch. There's the top of it, because I'm right-handed. If you're working left-handed, it's on the other side. Get the next stitch. And I know that there are at least 5 because there were 5 on the other side of the middle stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. there's the remaining 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the other side of the middle stitch. That takes me up to the corner space. When I get to the corner space, I have to work 2 double crochet into it because we are bumpering each side with 2 new double crochet in the corner spaces. So if I pause, row 3 had 11 double crochet per side. If I add 4, that gives me 15. I should have 15 double crochet on this side. Let's find out. There's the 2 in the corner. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the middle stitch. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 double crochet. That's exactly how many stitches I need to have on each side of row 4. There's my middle loop. Let's loop this up. There we go. Okay, let's continue with that corner. So I've worked the 2 double crochet. I need to make the corner now. Chain 1. Goodness gracious, Deborah, thank you for picking up a few patterns. Chain 10. Come on back down and slip stitch into the 10th chain from the hook and chain 1 more. So chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1. That's the corner. Pull the other corner loops out of the way. Here's the space. I need to put 2 more double crochet into the corner because those are the first 2 double crochet along the next side. So 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 corner, loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet. Let's get this guy all braided up here. Why not? 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet. Okay, so let's just flatten this out. Now let's catch up on this square. So your regular corner on a solid double crochet granny square is 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Pull back before you leave the corner. That always helps expose the top of the next stitch. And in this case, I'm just working across those existing 11 double crochet from the previous row. Now, when I get to the middle stitch, which is this guy right here, that's where I would work the double crochet, chain 10 loop. So I would do the double crochet, that's the middle stitch, do the chain 10 loop, and then keep going. Double crochet, but this is just the regular solid double crochet granny. And then when I get to the corner, 2 double crochet. And it's always a good time to stop. If there were 11 double crochet in the previous side, there needs to be 15 here. So there's 2 in the corner. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the middle stitch. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 stitches, and then chain 2 for the corner. And before I finish or leave, 2 more double crochet. That starts the next side. So that's your plain solid double crochet granny square. And now we're at the same place. Can you see that? So this is, I'll put this hook back in here. So there's my loops. I'll get you out of the way. So half of side 1, because you always start halfway through the side. Every row starts the same way. Corner number 1. Full second side, new loop. And corner number 2, completed. And this is exactly the same number of stitches done. Hello, Teresa. Welcome to Vicuña. Thank you so much for joining the family. Fairy Queen says, I think my confusion began because I didn't do the chain 1, then the chain 10. I only chained 10 and now it looks great. Okay, great. Yes, Linksa, Mister will get you that link. We do have a playlist for all of our granny squares, and it's huge because we've done a bazillion granny squares.
We have a playlist for every single granny square tutorial we've done, or Q&A, and there's about 47 videos, maybe 50 videos in that playlist. And then the granny squares that are part of this year's blanket, that's a different playlist. And that playlist is called Granny's Magical Cupboard.
Yes, we have
so if that's the one you're looking for, let me know. Otherwise, just all the general granny squares. I've just put that in the chat. Yes, basic solid double. Yes, that's the one that's just above your comment in the chat there. You could also go to our channel homepage anytime and use the search icon, search feature on our channel homepage. I'll link that too.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for picking up a pattern. Okay. Don't mind me, everybody. I'm just making a note here. Okay.
So if you go to our channel homepage, which I just put the link in, right across the top you'll see a whole bunch of sections. One of them is videos. Let me see here. So how do we do videos? Okay, so you go to the channel homepage, and across the top you're going to see a menu that says home, videos, shorts, live, playlists, community, and membership. So membership is info if you are a member, or if you're not a member, it's info, and if you are a member, it's kind of like your little dashboard. Community is kind of like a bit like a posting area, like a Facebook type of thing where we can post pictures and notices and information. The playlists is where you'll see all the playlists. And then the lives is where you'll catch archived live streams. And then the videos button will show you all the videos in chronological order, and there's pages and pages and pages of those. But if you want to just quickly search, right next to memberships there is a magnifying glass. So you can use that to search our entire channel. So for example, if you're looking for cloverleaf applique or traditional granny square, you can plug that in and it'll pop up for you.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my goodness, I was talking with my that whole time I was speaking with my microphone
Were
muted.
you? Okay, so that's hilarious.
Hilarious.
You're just batting 1,000 this week.
I'm on fire with the tech. I just explained our entire homepage menu system, and I was on mute.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, too bad, everyone. You lost out on that info.
Oh, and that's so sweet because you were talking like nice and calmly.
I was explaining everything so everyone could find our tutorials.
All right.
That's okay.
Guys, sorry for the little I don't know, Mr. and Stitches is
Jada will be filing the divorce papers any minute now. Or will I be getting the pink slip?
Mr.
Oh,
and
boy.
Stitches is just having a rough time for some reason this
Please
week.
don't lay me off.
I promise I won't lay you off. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm just making a couple of notes here, and now we're gonna finish off row 4. Okay. Let's get back to the pattern. Okay, pardon me guys. All right, let's do this. We are going to finish up row 4. Here we go. All right, so we've just completed the second corner. We've got 1.5 full sides. If you're looking at the solid double crochet granny square for reference, we're basically just done this much. So that's where we are at. Let's continue. So the previous row had 11 stitches, which means that this row has to have 15 because every row grows by 2 double crochet and 2 double crochet on either side of each side. So 4 double crochet per side, 16 double crochet per row. I've already put 2 double crochet in the corner, which means that I've got to do at least 5 before I get to the middle stitch. So I'm going to double crochet in each of the next 5. That brings me up to the middle stitch. I know it's the middle stitch because if I pull everything apart, I'm coming up to the loops. I'm working right-handed, so I pull my loops to the left because I'm coming up to them. If I'm working left-handed and I'm coming up on the loops, I'm pulling them to the right. If I pull them to the left, I can see that middle stitch. I can see the top of it where I need to crochet. It's the middle stitch of the side. That means it gets the chain 10 loop. Rob likes the colors we've chosen. Thank you, Rob. Chain 10 loop. I now pull all the loops to the other side. I'm right-handed, so I'm pulling them to the right. If you're left-handed, you're pulling them to the left. That shows me my next stitch. It shows me where I need to work, so I just double crochet right into the top of it, knowing that I've got 5 more double crochets on this side of the middle stitch before I get to the corner. Mr. and Stitches.
Mr. and Stitches explaining the meaning of life.
Murmur, 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 murmur. That's 5 double crochet. That brings me up to the corner. I have to work 2 double crochet into the corner, and if I want to just pause and double check, so I know I have to have 15 stitches on this side. So there's 2 in the corner, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the middle stitch. There's my loop. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have 15 stitches along that side because I'm on row 4. I'll just loop up those loops. Why not? And now, because I've already put 2 double crochet in that corner space, I need to start the next corner. That's chain 1, chain 10 loop. Join to the 10th chain from the hook. That's your chain 10 loop. Chain 1 more, and before you leave the corner, pull everything to the side. You're looking at that corner space. Make sure you work those 2 double crochet into the corner because those are the 2 new double crochet for the next side. And I will pause and loop up those loops too. How many yards for a size 3 yarn on a calendar blanket? About the same rows. So if it's 40 yards of a medium size 4 blanket, a medium size 4 acrylic yarn for each square. Like I mentioned earlier, the size 3 really isn't that much of a difference to really concern yourself. You might find you need about a yard or 2 less per square if you're using the DK weight. But I would estimate if you're kind of doing, if you're gathering yarn together, assume the same yardage for the size 3 lightweight yarn. So if it's 40 yards for the size 4 medium weight, assume about the same for the size 3 lightweight, and that way if you have a few extra yards left over, that's okay. It's better to have too much than not enough. Little white wolf wants to see the block I'm working on the back. Okay, so I'll flip it to the back so you can see the back. That's what the back looks like.
A little higher.
A little higher. So you can't see the loops on the back, which is kind of neat. And I think it's worth noting that the middle stitch kind of gets pulled a little bit. So it almost disappears if you're looking at it from the back. That middle stitch kind of gets pulled a little bit. Like it almost sort of gets pulled up or disappears a little bit. Like it sits up a little bit. You can see it there. Where's my needle? That's the middle stitch. And you see how it gets pulled up? It's sitting above the other stitches of the same color. Here's the middle stitch in the green one. It gets kind of pulled up a little bit. It's sitting up above the other stitches. Here's the middle stitch of the, like this is the middle stitch of the white one, but that loop kind of pulls it up a little bit. Yeah, so that's what the back looks like. Let's continue. So that's 2 double crochet in the corner. So that's the first 2 double crochet along that side. There were 11 double crochet along the side in the previous row. That means that there needs to be 5 double crochet on either side of the middle stitch, because if 11 stitches is the number of stitches along the side and there's 1 middle stitch, that leaves 10, and that means there's an equal number on either side of the middle stitch, so that's 5 on either side. So I need to at least work 5 double crochet before I get up to that middle stitch. So that's 5 for sure. I can clearly see I've arrived at the middle stitch because here's all of my loops. This one's attached to the top of it. I can see that's where I need to work the middle stitch. Now I build my chain 10 loop. There we go. Slip stitch back into the top of it. Take all the loops from the previous row, make sure they're on the front and pulled to the right, because I'm right-handed, on the front, pulled to the left if I'm working left-handed. Gently pull apart my work and I can see that's the next stitch and there's the top of it, and that's where I'm going to work my double crochet into. And I know that's the first of 5 because there have to be 5 stitches on the other side of my middle stitch because I'm working across the stitches from row 3. And once I get 5 double crochet in, that should bring me up to the corner if I have done my calculations properly. And yes, it is. There's my corner. 2 double crochet in there. I know I need 15 stitches along the side because I'm in row 4. So it's always good to pause. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the middle stitch. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I will pause. 15 double crochet across the side when it's completed for row 4, 2 in the corner, and then 5, there's the middle stitch, and then 5, and then 2 in the corner. There we go. That's 2 double crochet in the corner, so I need a new corner now. Chain 1, make a chain 10 loop. There we go. Chain 1, so that's the corner completed. Grab everything, pull it to the side. Before I leave the corner space, 2 more double crochet into the corner, because those are the first 2 double crochet for my last full side. So I'll just loop these up. This loop comes through the loop from the row previous. There we go. And we are almost back to the beginning. So there's my 2 double crochet into the corner. That completes the corner. 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet, done. I know that I need 15 double crochet in this side. This is the side I started on, so I know that my chain 3 was just before the middle stitch, which I did, added the chain 10 loop, and so on. If I know I need 15 stitches and I'm not sure because I'm looking at like the stitches in between and it's a little bit confusing, I can see that I've got 4 here. But if you weren't sure, you could always just count. Start over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, that leaves me with 4 stitches. So there they are there. 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'll double crochet in each of those remaining 4 stitches. That brings me up to the chain 3 that began the row. And it's really this repeated from here on out, here on out. And of course, like I said, your loops are getting further and further apart every single time. So it's a little easier to see what you're doing. When you get up to the top, I should say, when you get to the beginning, you just find the top of your chain 3, join with a slip stitch. There we go. And I'm going to fasten off. There. Okay. Get this out of the way.
I have to say, just like that granny square's turning out to look pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
And I know you were just like, I don't know, should we do this color? I don't know, should we do this color? It looks great.
Just cramming them all together.
Just cram them together. Wow.
So there we go. That's 4 rows. Row 5, row 6. It's just the same thing now, repeated. So hopefully that's a little easier to see. Every row begins in the top of the chain 3. That chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and it's always, the chain 3 is always just before the middle stitch. So the first double crochet, the first real double crochet you do will be the middle stitch of that first side, which means you have to also make your first chain 10 loop. Chain 3, double crochet, chain 10 loop. Every side starts the same way. Pull everything out of the way, and then you can see where you need to put your next stitch. Double crochet in every stitch up to the corner. 2 double crochet, chain 1, chain 10 loop, chain 1, 2 double crochet, all into the corner. Double crochet in each stitch all the way up to the middle stitch. If it helps you to kind of do math as you go, row 1, 3 stitches per side. Row 2, 7 stitches per side. Every row side grows by 4 stitches. 3, 7, 11, 15, 19, 23. The last row of the square is just double crochets. So row 5, you're basically making another row of loops, but row 6, or whatever your last row is, you double crochet in every single stitch. When you get up to a loop, you just slip the loop over your hook and continue double crocheting into the next stitch. You're not making any loops. You just slide the loop over your hook and continue double crocheting, and that just anchors the top of the loop. It catches the loop in the top of the double crochet. And then when you're done, like I like to go around and just kind of pull out all my loops just to make sure that they all look nice and even. Yeah. All right. I really hope this helped everybody. What do we got? Fun idea. If you do 12 solid granny squares in a month's corresponding color like blue, pink, green, etc., it will make a pretty awesome wall hanging too. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. We all want ice cream now. This is so good. I would love some ice cream. Well, I'm really, really glad that this sounds like this helped, and so I'm really, really happy to hear that. The last row of the square I think is pretty straightforward. I think we were able to demonstrate it pretty clearly in the tutorial, so I think we'll give that a skip because that's not too problematic. You're just double crocheting in every stitch, slip the loop over your hook, continue double crocheting. There's no extra chains, there's no loops when you get to the corner. It's just 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet, so that's easy peasy. And you end up with 23 solid double crochets all the way across the side. And if we look at it from the back, that's what it looks like on the back of a completed Jacob's Ladder granny. So you can see there's your chain 2 space. You're just 2 double crochet in the corner, double crochet in every single stitch. You're just catching the loop, but you're not making a new one, and you're just continuing to double crochet. So that's what it looks like from behind. All right. Are there any other questions? Any other questions that we might be able to help you with for this particular granny square? What an epic stream. You guys have been amazing. I'm so glad so many of you were able to hang out the whole time. If you feel this will help somebody, so if you know somebody who's been struggling with the square and they maybe don't realize we did a live stream today, because I know not everybody, obviously, everybody's in a different time zone. Everybody's got different stuff going on in their life. So if you know of somebody that this might help, please share the link of the stream with them. And just remind them, if they're new to the concept of live streams, just remind them this is going to be long, but it's extremely, like, you know, stitch by stitch, a little bit more intricate than a regular old tutorial. No questions? Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, if you do wind up with questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section down below. I try to get to questions like once, sometimes twice a week, so I do get to them. If there's a bit of a delay between you asking the question and getting an answer, that's why. And if it's, you know, pressing or it's about the pattern or something, don't hesitate to pop into the Etsy shop and ask us a question there. You can just click on message seller, or click on the existing message thread that you might have with us, and we answer that too. So, Mr. Stitches, have you got anything you'd like to add?
I'm just going to pop the link to the shop in the chat. Just remind everyone, our sneaky sale runs today only, and that's the 3 current squares for this year's project.
Plus the solid double crochet granny square.
Plus the solid double crochet.
Yeah.
Jada snuck one in there.
I snuck an extra one in there because it does work with the rest of the squares, and I just thought, you know, it might help to make them both at the same time, because it's all the same numbers of double crochets. It's just that you're adding in these chain 10 loops as you go, and then it really does look neat. I love it. I think it's such a cool square.
The tech just doesn't want to work for me today.
Are you still having problems?
Or yesterday. Okay, there we go. So, sneaky sale, and if you would like to send pictures.
Yes, you can also, same thing, click on message seller and you can add a picture.
No, I don't think I need to add anything else. You did an amazing job explaining that in detail.
Thanks, honey.
I saw a lot of light bulbs and exploding heads happening there in the chat. Hundreds and hundreds. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I like these colors.
Yeah.
I really like these colors.
It doesn't look like anyone has any... Oh, there's a question from Danielle. Can you anchor one row?
Can I? Why can't I see that?
Anchor one row.
Why can I not see that? What is going on here?
Danielle? It's towards the bottom.
Oh my gosh, see, it just stopped for me. Wasn't seeing anything. There we go. Yes, of course, Danielle. I can anchor. Yes, we'll anchor it. Okay, no problem, my dears, no problem. All right, I'm going to zip back to the main blue. So this is a 5-row version. So let's say row 4 was my second last row instead of row 5, because obviously it's the same pattern ever onward. Let's go. Last row looks like this. Starting in the same place, that's the top of the chain 3. Chain 3 counts as a double crochet, it's no different. You come up to that first stitch. So the chain 3 is always in the top of the chain 3. The chain 3 is always just before the middle stitch of the side. Double crochet into the middle stitch, just like you would. Make sure before you get to the anchoring row stage that you have linked up all of your loops. All of your loops must be braided up for this to work. So if you haven't already done this, make sure all your loops are braided. Double crochet into the middle stitch, take the loop from the previous row, place it over your hook or place your hook through that loop. Just stick it right on there. Pull everything to the side. You're looking for the next double crochet. There it is. I can tell because I'm pulling everything away and it's revealed to me. Double crochet into the next stitch. You're not doing anything fancy. So there, I've just double crocheted. Now, if it looks like this and you're like, I don't think that's right. Yes, it is. Just tug the other side out. You're looking for the top to have stitching normally running across it. And then you just double crochet into every remaining stitch. So I'll just get each double crochet up to the corner here. So before I go into the corner, pull out on your loops. It's anchored. So your chain 3, your middle double crochet, slip the loop over your hook and double crochet into the next stitch, and it will just trap the top of it. It'll just trap the top of it. When you get to a corner, 2 double crochet, chain 1. Now this would be normally where you chain 10, but you're not chaining 10. You're going to take the previous row's loop, slip it over your hook, then chain 1, and continue 2 double crochet into that space because it's still 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet, like a solid double crochet granny square. It's just that now you're trapping the loop in that chain. So chain, trap, like slip loop over hook, chain, and that traps the loop. See that? Trapping the loops. Pull back, make sure you don't miss the top of the next stitch. Double crochet in every single stitch up to the middle stitch. You can do it, Debbie. You can absolutely do it. This is actually probably great. If you kind of watch this and you didn't bother making it, it's always good to watch, read a pattern all the way through first. Read a recipe all the way through first. Watch a tutorial all the way through first, then attempt the project, then start to cook. I always do that. Read the whole thing first so there's no surprises. And I kind of in my head kind of know what's coming up, and then I'm not as confused. I like to see the whole thing first before I get going. There's my middle double crochet stitch. So I'm going to double crochet into it. Making sure all my loops are already braided, I take that last loop, slip it over my hook, pull everything to the side. There's my next stitch. There's the top of it. Double crochet. And you're just catching. You're catching that loop. And this makes sure that we don't have any extra stitches running along that side. Keep going, double crochet in every stitch up to the next corner. Kind of like the colors on this one. I'm up to the corner, 2 double crochet into the corner space, chain 1. Instead of making a chain 10 loop, I make sure all those loops are braided. I take the last loop, slip it over my hook, chain my second chain, and before I leave, I got to work 2 double crochet into the space because it's still 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. I'm just now catching a loop in the middle of it. All right. And continue. Pull back. Make sure you don't miss the top of the next stitch on your way out. Double crochet in each stitch. When you get up to the middle stitch, double crochet into the top of it. Oops. Now on this granny, it'll be 23 stitches all the way across. So your 5th row will have been another regular loop row. And in your 5th row, you'll have 19 double crochet all the way across. So in row 6, you'll have 23 double crochet all the way across. You'll have 11 double crochet on either side of the middle stitch. So you'll have 2 and then 9, then your middle stitch, grab loop, and then 9 and then 2. So that's row 6. Because this is I'm just ending this square off a row earlier, this is row 5. Row 5 has 19 stitches. Row 5 has 19 stitches. So the stitch count doesn't change. I'm just not adding the loop in the last row. That's all. Make sure your loops are braided. Slip the loop over your hook. Pull everything out of the way. There's the next stitch. There's where I'm doing the double crochet. And double crochet. And yeah, it might look funny until you pull the loop forward. So sometimes when you're crocheting, you actually have to sort of fuss with your loops or your stitches. That's part of kind of making something. Double crochet in each stitch all the way up to the corner space. When you get to the corner and you put your 2 double crochet into it, if you have to, pause. This is row 5, so I know I have to have 19 stitches across the side. If this was row 6, I would have to make sure there were 23 stitches across the side. 2 double crochet in the corner. Make sure all of my loops are braided. Take the last loop, slip it over the hook. Oops, I forgot to chain 1. Chain 1, got to make that corner. Slip loop, chain 1, and 2 more double crochet into the corner. There we go. Pull the loop out. You could also do this at the end if you want. And continue. Make sure after your 2nd double crochet in the corner space, you don't miss the top of the one as you leave. Double crochet. Yes, remember to fuss. Thanks, Mr. and Stitches.
Cheers.
Jada
says, remember to fuss.
I'm being trolled here.
Don't forget to fuss.
Double crochet into the middle stitch. Make sure all those loops are all braided up. Take the loop, pass it over your hook, pull everything to the side. There's the next double crochet, so I'm going to work right into the top of it. Don't worry about your loops. If everything looks squished, you can go back and fuss later. Double crochet in each stitch up to the space. And don't forget too, if you're still kind of struggling with this, the counts or anything like that, make yourself a solid double crochet granny square, even if you just work the first 3 rows of it, because that will get you into the right mindset for this square. When you reach the corner, work 2 double crochet into it. Chain 1 to start the corner. Make sure your loops are all braided. Take the loop, slide it over your hook. Chain 1 more, easy peasy. There's the corner, 2 more double crochet into it. We're on the home stretch here. This is row 5, so technically I only need 19 stitches in the row. If this was row 6, there'd be 23 stitches in it, or in the side, I should say, not the whole row. Double crochet in each stitch, and this will bring you up to the chain 3 that began the row. So every row begins with the chain 3 and ends up against the chain 3 coming from the other direction. Always count. If you get back and you're like, oh, is that the false stitch? Is that the top of the chain 3? Did I already use that? I can't tell because my stitching's messy. Just pause. This is row 5, so you know you have to have 19 stitches. Count them up. If you've got 19, close the row. If you're missing one, add in another stitch, close the row. If you've got too many, find out where you may have added in the extra stitch, take it out, go back, finish it, close the row. If it's row 6, you'll have 23 stitches. Make sure you have 23 at the end of row 6 on each side, 19 at the end of each side, at the end of row 5. At the end of row 5, it's 19 per side. At the end of row 6, it's 23 per side. And there we go. I'm going to pull out my little corners, my little loops. Now, this is also probably when you guys start to notice the rippling. You know, you might look at it and go, why? What is wrong with my square? Why is it warping? Why is it all ripply and stuff? What's going on here? If you pull up on these loops, you might find, especially with the DK weight yarn, you know, the lighter weight yarn, if you've got maybe a looser tension, you might find that it really wants to warp on you, or that your spines stick out, or that the parts in between are wavy. Grab your corners, pull them out, give it a bit of a flattening, and if it's driving you nuts, feel free to block it, but don't worry about it. The important thing is row count, stitch count. Row count must be the same as every other square in the project. Stitch count per row must be the same. So just so you know, in every single square this year, row 3, row 1 will have 3 stitches per side. Row 2 will have 7 stitches per side. Row 3 will have 11 stitches per side. Row 4, 15. Row 5, 19. Row 6, 23. Every single square this whole year. It'll be double crochets. Sometimes it'll be, you know, double crochets and chain 1 spaces, but it will always be the same stitch count per side. So that way you know that your square works. There we go. So that's the anchoring row. I kind of like how that one turned out. This one's 5 rows as opposed to this one being 6 rows. This is a slightly smaller yarn, DK weight, versus the size 5 or the size 4 yarn. But this actually isn't much smaller. I did this 5 rows. So I think if I did this 6 rows, it would have been the same size as this one. So this is 1 full row less than the bigger one. Gee, that looks cool too, eh? With the white and the yellow, I should say.
It really pops. It's like it's jumping out at you. Punk.
Fairy Queen. Jada, does this particular square need to be blocked before we finish the blanket? I don't know. We don't have to block the other ones until the end. No, you don't have to. You don't have to block it at all. If I didn't block this, I just went squish, 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 and I like that. That's fine. Like I said, stitch count, row count. That's what matters. If it's like, and you're like, oh my God, I can't look at this until the end of the year, then feel free to block it. But a little bit of this, you know, makes it lay out pretty neatly. So go ahead and you can block it if you want, but you don't have to. Can you do less chains on the last row so that the top braid isn't so bumpy? Or is there a way to flatten it a bit? Oh, nice question, Danielle. Yeah, so you mean, do you want to make your loops fewer chains? If you want to make your loops a little bit smaller so that they don't quite, I guess, look squished, or, you know, if you find that they're too big. I know somebody mentioned that she had really, I think it might have been Diane, said that her chains were always too big, like her loops wound up being very big because her chains were kind of loose. 8. So instead of chain 10 loops on the last row, or the second last row, chain 8. That would be fine, and then that'll make them just a little bit smaller. So yeah, absolutely, you can totally do that. That won't hurt the pattern, change the pattern, nothing. Great question, Danielle. Squish, squish, Anna. Exactly. Fuss, fuss, squish, squish. These are technical terms.
This is math and science terminology.
Renee says her mama warned her about squishing. Yes, you got to be careful of squishing. Fuss, fuss, fuss. To the tune of meow, meow, meow. I want to. Yes. Fuss, 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 fuss. Yeah, I like that, Charlie.
To the tune of meow, meow, meow.
All right, so there we go. Definitely, I know we covered everything now, which makes me feel really good about that, because now we can point people at this live stream if they've got questions. Like I said, if you know anybody who was having trouble and you didn't see them in the chat today, please feel free to take the link and share it with these people. Share it in the Facebook group if you think it'll be helpful there. Share it on Twitter, share it in Discord, share it anywhere you hang out with other like-minded crocheters who might be having trouble with this square.
That includes any of our videos.
Yeah, any of our videos. But for sure, boy, it's cute, the smaller size. Look at this. So I've got...
Hey, Jada.
This is 3, this is 5, this is 6 rows.
I'm not so sure you did enough fussing today.
You're gonna get it. That's what I'm gonna say.
I think you need to fuss a little more.
Stop trolling me.
What?
Look, it's a family of Jacob's ladder squares.
Look how cute. A family of Jacob's ladder squares.
For the family. A family of squares for the family.
For the family.
Oh my god.
They all look so good. The color combinations.
It's really cute. Yeah. I really hope this was helpful. I'm really glad this was helpful for anybody who found it helpful. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. I know we don't usually do Wednesday live streams, but it is yes, it's like quilting. Melanie says squish squish is the crochet equivalent of steam it into submission for quilting. Yes. Iron your seams, squish your yarn.
There you go.
It's the 3 little squares. You've got
squares.
Papa square, Mama square, and Baby square. This is Charlie.
Cute.
Oh my gosh. All right, my dear friends. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I hope this was helpful. I'm glad it was. To the end of today, our secret sale, our sneaky sale is all 3 of this year's blanket squares so far, plus our solid double crochet granny square. So if you know anyone who's thinking about picking them up, please mention that to them as well. It's just for today only, a little sneaky sale, since we were having a sneaky crochet along. And we will see you Friday. We will have a live, or not a live, we will have a regular pre-filmed tutorial, brand new project for you on Friday. And it's adorable. That's all I'm going to say. So we will see you Friday. I hope the rest of your week goes great. I hope you're able to fly through the rest of your Jacob's Ladder granny squares now. You have a little more confidence there, and you can go ahead and do them. And like I said, next month's square will be easier. So no worries. We're going to just kind of bring up the challenge and bring it back down. What was that, mister?
I said next month's square will be a circle.
Yes, next month's square will be a circle. Oh, goodness.
If you think Jada did enough fussing and squishing, click the like button.
When does St. Patrick's Day fall this year, Fairy Queen? Is that the 17th? What's the 17th? Is that a Friday? Is that a Monday?
It's always the 17th.
It's always the 17th, but what day is that?
Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I wasn't planning on doing a live stream on Sunday. I guess if we were going to do something, it would have to be like the Friday or the Monday before.
Well, if we do, we'll notify in the community tab.
Yes, if we do.
We shall see.
Yeah, we shall see. Okay, everybody, we'll let you go. Thanks so much for this long-winded live stream, and we will see you Friday. Take care, stay safe, and stay crafty.
Bye, everyone.